Okay. All right, welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday, November 11th. We are here starting at 6 o'clock for our budget workshop. Second one of hopefully not too many. Made a lot of good progress last week. So do a quick roll call to see who we've got. Councilmember Cargill.
Present.
Councilmember Kurtz. Present. Councilmember Van Orman. Here. Councilmember Follier.
Here.
Councilmember Spencer.
Present.
Councilmember Sahlberg.
Here.
And looking to see Councilmember Dunn, like I said, is going to be trying to call in, but I don't know if he's going to make it at 6. So Trevor and Kelsey, if you notice he's joined, can you just let me know? All right, we'll do the official roll call at 7. All right, so again, good progress last week, you guys. So I thought since we got through all of the general fund, and we did a lot on the other funds previously when Kyle was going through explaining what the funds were, but if there's no objections, I thought we would start with all other funds in your second blue tab, page 67. Sure you have everybody on here. So wait till everybody gets there. All right, so the first page, fund here in our all other funds section is American Rescue Plan fund. Obviously, council allocated everything over the last month or so. Are there any questions on that or how to read this summary page? Okay, not hearing any. All right, we'll go on to page 68, Streets Operations and Maintenance Fund Resources. Now, this is another one where we've got the summary page, and then we do have line item detail behind it. Are there any questions on the main page with regards to the notes? Councilmember Cargill.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out why our beginning balances are increasing so much. And maybe I'm just missing something, but I had just made a note of the 18% beginning balance. And obviously that's a good thing, but then I'm just wondering if there's other places that need to be cut back, if that's the case.
Kyle, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jen can speak to it a little bit as well.
You're on mute.
We can,
Oh, hold on.
can everybody hear me?
Nope.
What about now?
No, I can barely hear something.
We can hear you on Zoom.
Hearing him from his office, I think.
Do that.
Nothing?
Kyle, can you send me a telegram? That work?
Kyle, we can hear you on Zoom. Can you hear me?
Right.
They can't hear you, Councilor Ching.
Now we can hear Kyle. We got you, Jen.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Beautiful. Okay, sorry about that. So some of that you can contribute to what we had budgeted potentially for like snow removal and things of that nature that maybe we didn't see quite the snow events that we maybe anticipated. Another reason is just have we been getting to our projects that we had budgeted for? And so Jen, can you speak a little bit more to?
Well, yeah, Kyle, I was going to ask you, could one of those be the resolution that's on the agenda tonight, the $40,000 equipment purchase? Would that be a part of this?
So what Councilmember Cargill is referring to is on page 68, you can see a gradual increase in our beginning balances. And there was one reason we didn't process the streets transfer. I believe it was 2 years ago. I'll have to go back and look. And the reason escapes me for that, but I believe it was because we wanted to make sure we were balancing. And we had a solid base for our beginning balances, because these interfund transfers are always based on available funds. And so as you can see in 2021, we had a beginning balance of 290. So if we had transferred 200,000, we're leaving ourselves a pretty low balance. And so that could be potentially a reason why the snow events, things of that nature can contribute to that. rise in beginning balance.
Can I ask one
Oh,
follow-up, Mayor?
absolutely.
Thanks, Kyle, for that. And then the telephone utility tax, is that making an assumption about what is going to happen via the utility tax that we adopt, or is it making an assumption just based on the market conditions that it's going down 50,000?
Purely based on the market.
Okay.
We're going away from landlines. Everybody's, not everybody, but you see this shift year over year to VoIP that comes back.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, any other questions on the summary page for streets, operations and maintenance? Okay, not hearing it. We'll go ahead and switch over to the line items then for this fund. So we're on page 69. So I'll let you guys take one more refresher glance at that and let me know if you've got any questions. We've got all the right people here to answer your questions. Okay, not hearing any. I'll go ahead and move on to page 70. The first half is mostly insurance and benefits, but then you get down into your supplies, very similar to what we saw in some of the other line item funds with just increasing costs across the board for supplies. Any specific questions? Nope. Okay. Page 71, same thing. And Mark's going to touch on that. Mark and Kyle are going to touch on this later with an update on utility tax rebates, but it is interesting if you look at the 2022 actual and 2021 actual, nobody filed for that rebate. So team's been talking about some ways to get that information out better. So that'll come during the 7 o'clock meeting. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, great. Welcome, Councilmember Dunn. Thanks for coming. We are in the special sections, all other funds section of our budget binder on page 71.
Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm looking at the 553-604-110, the weed control professional services. Looks like we're bringing that in-house or trying to bring it in-house, but the cost is about the same to what we appropriated last year. But that's obviously quite a bit more than what we appropriated or spent so far in 2022. Are we expecting that to get up to the $10,000 range, or is it gonna stay at about 6,000 or 7,000?
Yeah, so right now we're at, let's see, and you said it's 4110, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the
Yep.
second line
Yeah.
to the bottom on that page.
So we are currently at this moment sitting at 6,000. We're using Greenleaf Landscape to do most of our weed control on, fulfill our weed control needs. We're hoping to bring in a person on staff to do the bulk of that work next year. We've been trying to have a weed specialist on staff for years and with not great luck. So I budgeted in hopes that we will be able to do that in-house and not rely on Greenleaf, but we do have that buffer for Greenleaf in case we do need to continue using Greenleaf.
Okay, so I guess, yeah, that was my question, Jen. So if we bring that in-house, then that number goes down to 0 and then we increase it somewhere else.
Most likely, I would never say 0 because there may be an odd time where we need to use them. It's in there in case we do need to use them next year to the fullest capacity. And I would anticipate close to 10,000 by the end of this year, if not a little bit under that. So therefore I repeated that for next year, but I should have probably notated that, ideally we would shoot for 0 for next year if we did it in-house, because that line item would just go away or used very nominally.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any further questions on page 71? Around. All right, we'll go on to 72. So we've got some of the lease payments on here for some of our equipment, insurance, capital expenditures. And as you can see on the CFP, there are some CFP numbers called out on there. And then we've got the annual transfer to streets capital of $200,000.
Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
So that 200,000, is that the difference between the 2022 and the 2023 proposed? Roughly? So at the very top there, for 542, the streets maintenance, we go from 646 to 833.
Oh, so that top line there is a summary of what came before it. On previous page. So Kyle, do you want to discuss that transfer to streets? We obviously didn't do it in 20,
Yeah,
we did
not-
it early in 2020 for 2021.
Correct. And so that was, we were watching that ending / beginning balance. And it's subject to available funds. And so having that buffer in streets is more advantageous than transferring that 200,000 to the streets capital in the hopes that we have enough to carry us through without getting that beginning or ending balance too small. So that was justification for not doing it in 2020.
Thank you.
All right, more questions? So, and then we're on to 73, which is a balance of the expenditures. So that takes us to Parks and Art Fund reserves. And I know Jen and Trevor are both in those meetings in case you guys have any questions. So they basically set their allocation for each year. And did I hear somebody? Sorry, set their allocation for each year. And for this year, they're looking for 32.5. Jen, go ahead, Councilmember Cargill.
Oh, I was, maybe you were about to answer this, Mayor. I was just trying to figure out, obviously, that's a pretty large increase. So is there something specific that's happening in that?
So, question, I have to apologize because right as I was ready to submit all of my budget info, I got sidetracked by the hospital for a while. And I'm looking at the Parks and Arts Commission plan, and Kyle, I don't know how we do this, but their strategic plan, and I don't know if this is in your packet. If not, I can get it to you. Their strategic plan for 2023 is showing 65,000, not so I guess Kyle, my question is what's the final line item?
Well,
If their strategic plan is showing 65,000 for all their projects, and I can elaborate on their projects here in a second.
That makes sense, Jen. We're starting with sorry, I got my numbers mixed up. We're starting with 32.5 and we're transferring in 37.4 for a total of 70,000.
Oh, okay.
So do you, I don't remember which page their strategic plan is on. You want to go through their top items for next year?
Yeah, so they have 4,000 set aside for utility box wraps, and they have had those sponsored by SDCU every year. So ideally, that would be a number that really wouldn't come out of their budget, but they do budget for it just in case they don't have a sponsor. They have a $6,000 story walk for Orchard Park. Again, there is a major contribution that has been discussed with the Kiwanis on that project. And again, they do plan to fund that entire thing, but they do seek out the sponsors and have one on dial. They have a $50,000 Hoop Town court, which they are seeking a sponsorship from, and that will be a project that goes in tandem with capital facility or capital improvement project with Pavilion Park. So we already have part of that sports court resurfacing for Pavilion Park in the CIP for this next year to redo the surface. And then on top of that, there's an art project that will happen in addition to that project at the same time. And they hope to have the artwork portion mostly or maybe entirely sponsored. Again, it's in there just in case they don't find a sponsor. And then they have $5,000 set aside for beautification in parks, specifically for graffiti barrels with the library as a project for our parks.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on the Parks and Arts Commission?
I have one question.
Sure, go ahead.
I had the same question and it drew me to this capital facilities plan. As I look into 24 and 25, we're estimating another 55,000 and 47,500. Is it for similar type expenses?
Which one are you referring to on that?
I'm just looking at the capital facilities number related to Parks and Arts.
If
and-
I may, Councilmember Foyer, the capital facilities plan actually reflects the Parks and Arts Commission strategic plan.
Oh, okay, so for 24, so what I'm seeing on their strategic plan is for 24, they're showing 55,000. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
And then for 25, they show 47,500.
Correct.
So those are just more continued projects, similar to what I explained as projects for next year. They're similar projects that they anticipate. Those will likely change, but they like to try to, plan out with goals for the outlying 2 to 3 years.
Great.
But
Thank
they may totally change, they may not change at all, they may build on that, or they may take away.
Perfect. Understand. Thank you.
And obviously knowing that anything that is above the 5,000 threshold will come before council when the time comes, even for the donation parts of it, that does come before you guys. All right, 75 Tourism Promotion Fund Resources. I know we've got the promotion fund, special revenue fund, we've got the capital fund, and there's the third one, the TPA resources. So they all kind of go hand in hand, which can get a little confusing for people. So I don't know if you guys want Kyle to go over any of that again. The first one on page 75 is the 2% lodging tax. The capital fund on page 76 is the 1.3 lodging tax. And the $2 per stay pass through on page 77, just as a refresher. Go ahead, Councilmember. What's your name? Kurtz.
I was curious about the promotion capital fund and what we have used that fund for in the past.
Oh, gosh.
Try I'm going to say we have not used those.
Kyle, we're having a hard time hearing you again.
Sorry. How about now?
A little better.
How about now?
Looks like we're talking to Wilson, but you're good.
So apologies, and I can move into council chambers if this happens again. So the tourism capital historically has not been used. It was an election to take the 1.3 for us to identify any capital expenses related to tourism. So let's say, some sort of regional athletic facility or some regional draw that would cost in excess of a certain threshold. And so these are funds dedicated to one sole project that would then enhance tourism to the area. And so historically, we have not found a use for these funds.
And I would say there might be, so the hub is looking at an expansion, so they may be coming probably early January or maybe even still in December to do a update for you guys, what their plans are. So that might be a use for these funds when that time comes.
As I was thinking about it and thinking about different ways, I mean, I don't know if tourism and Trailhead go together, but I do think people come to Liberty Lake to utilize Trailhead. And then I think the hub is an interesting idea too, but if there's any other ideas that we have to use this, I hate to have a fund that we don't use.
Yeah.
So I think we need to kind of keep an eye on that too.
Yep. Agreed. Councilmember Sahlberg.
But I think that it's been discussed past potentially.
Yes.
Just like Trailhead, even though it doesn't show necessarily people, sorry, it's comfortable too. People necessarily staying in the hotels, but it brings in large numbers of people to the area. And that affects a whole bunch of the businesses, especially this time of year with the new businesses on Indiana.
The question is, well, yeah, with regards to storage, because, the hub event obviously is not a capital, but I know there's some questions going on around about their the long-term storage for their stuff. So more to come in 2023. Go ahead.
This wouldn't necessarily be for the capital, but again, thinking that we really need to advertise Liberty Lake, the events and so forth.
Yeah.
Which one of these funds would we utilize for, say,
I'm looking.
advertisement type magazine to go out to the community at large.
So the marketing efforts is Fund 117.
Yeah.
That's on page 77. So in theory, that makes the most sense to apply those funds to. We have a current agreement with Visit Spokane that 100% of the revenue collected for this goes to them for their marketing efforts. So we would maybe have that conversation with Visit Spokane or any potential new marketing partner that we have about pushing that information out.
Yeah, and there's another line back, I think, under executive or administrative that we could probably use for a newsletter, because that would truly be going out to the residents. So it wouldn't really be probably bringing people in to Liberty Lake. It'd be going to the people already here. Another project for 23.
Yeah.
It's on the
absolutely.
list.
Okay.
All right, Councilmember Cargill.
Kyle, the one thing I'm noticing amongst all these funds is our interest and other earnings have shot up dramatically in each of them. Is there a reason for that?
So that's just, that's a reflection of the market first. And it's also a reflection of the recent use of the funds. And so in 115, you have dedicated events that can be reimbursed for tourism related activities. And what we saw last year was a round of funds from ARPA go out to a lot of our local nonprofits that satisfied a lot of their, I guess, annual requests for funding that they no longer had a need for the tourism fund resources that they normally would go after. So you have that balance growing. Also, on top of that, you have interest rates as they bottomed out, starting to creep back up, and you're starting to see we're going to collect quite a bit more, I think, in 2023. And we just saw the U.S. Treasury announce this week that they're going to raise it another 3/4 of a point. So we're going to continue to see that income rise all along these line items you see for interest and other earnings.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, any other questions on the tourism funds? Okay, not hearing any. Next would be our restricted reserve fund, of which, so I forgot which policy it is. I know I called it out in my budget letter. So there is, we are supposed to have a certain percentage in our restricted reserve fund, and we are actually about $300,000 short because we've never added to it as our expenses have gone up. So that's one of the things I'd like to request of council is to consider adding $300,000 to that restricted reserve. And this is a fund that requires council action for an emergency type of situation to use these funds for. But in order to stay up to date with our financial policies, that's a move that would need to be made. So we can, I know Kyle's got that on his list for potential action when we come through the different line items for the budget. And Kyle, that, if I remember right, that will come through a budget amendment before the end of the year, or are we going to wait till the January to reconcile it?
If given direction, we would do that before the end of the year. So we can reflect that beginning balance showing that proper amount to reflect per certain percentage of our operating revenue.
Great. I think Councilmember Dunn had a question.
Yeah, just to clarify, the action 300,000 in addition for the reserve is per policy and obligation of our council actions, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and it's stated as a
And-
goal, but we generally maintain it at 15% is that the language.
Got it. Would we entertain a motion in a regular meeting then to make that contribution before the end of the year, before the budget cycle?
I think that would-
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Cargill.
Just to clarify, Mayor and Kyle, this is not a fund we've taken anything out of. It's just because the fund is, or the city budget is growing, the need is to increase it.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't think, I'm trying to remember, I don't think, I'll look at Councilmember Randall, I don't think we've ever dipped into that.
Never.
Yeah.
Nope. Even when we went to the lowest we
Yeah.
could possibly go, we never
Yeah.
dipped into it.
Yeah, but good to have that. And we've got a policy for a reason. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Did I hear you say that has to be a separate action item by the council?
Well, when
Can
we.
it not be part of our budget?
Well, yeah, so as we've done in the past, Kyle's keeping track of the things that we're looking at adjusting as we go, and
Okay.
then we'll go through those.
I got you.
And so it would end up being, we'll take the council vote on yes or no, we're doing it, and then that would come back as a budget amendment separately before the end of the year.
Thank you for clarifying. Yep.
Correct me if I was wrong, Kyle.
Nope, that's correct.
Okay, good. All right, REIT 1 and 2, well, we'll go through the REIT 1 is first on page 79. We've talked a lot about REIT. I think everybody can probably say in their sleep where this comes from and how much it is. There's some notes there as to what the money's going for in 2023. Slip lane on Labor Lake Road, some intersection improvements, overlay design, sidewalk and pathway maintenance, and pedestrian crossings. We get into the detail on page 80. It also lists in here our lift reimbursement from Kramer Road. So that is that we've laid that out. We will be getting that back. So do you guys have any questions on page 80 or 81 really? Because I think that's, yeah, it's just 2 pages for REIT 1. Okay. All right. So if there's no questions on REIT 1, we'll go ahead and jump to REIT 2, another 1/4%. Public Works Yard is the bulk of that for 2023. Any questions on that on page 83 or 84? No. Okey doke. All right, Streets Capital Projects Fund, Fund 312. Again, your detail on page 85 with regards to annual street maintenance allocation. You've got the line item from the capital facilities plan that goes in there. Purchase of Freightliner ET7 and Smart Signal Control are all in the capital facilities plan called out. So
Mayor,
yes.
So included in your sheets with you, I have included an insert for this to correct what we had for annual street maintenance allocation. That was previously accounted for in 110 Streets Fund. And that was an error on my part to include that in both of these funds. So I'm removing the annual street maintenance allocation. We are calling out 2 expenses in streets capital for 2023. One is going to be ET7, the purchase of the Freightliner, and the other is TP6, the Smart Signal Control for $40,250. And so I just wanted to have that included as a replacement to what you see in the preliminary budget to correct that error of accounting for the annual street maintenance allocation twice.
So the capital outlay number I see went down.
Correct. Yep.
Great.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Mayor, smart signal control.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit of what that is?
I'm probably not the best person to explain it. David or Lisa, you want to take that one? I mean, I understand. I just can't.
That's okay.
Yeah, so basically, the way the system works is there's radio controllers that communicate between signals, and it relays the status of signals from one to the next. So if you have, so it keeps your signals in sync, and you can adjust the timing of your signals based upon what's happening with your traffic flows, and even vary it during peak hours, but keeping them in sync, which helps significantly improve the flow of traffic.
So every one of our traffic lights have this smart signal.
So our traffic lights that we have added over the course of the last several years all have the internal radio. What we don't have the equipment to basically project the information from one to the next and to tie into the WashDOT regional transportation network, and then they manage it through their computer system. So we have to create that connection between all of these signals, but we have the base infrastructure in each signal to be able to do that.
Okay, and this adds to that, what you were
Yeah.
just explaining.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and we,
Okay.
this had been kind of in the on the project list for a while. We were purposely putting the proper equipment in each signal, but we finally had to get to the point where we had pretty much all the signals together when it would make sense to put this in place.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Sure. Councilmember Dunn.
Question, Lisa, on the communication that this transmission device supports. Is it proprietary to a certain manufacturer, or is it a standard that lots of different manufacturers support?
Now we're getting too technical. I don't know the answer to that. Our signal techs who have advised us on this do know the answer to
Cool.
that. David, can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, usually they actually are. There's it's not proprietary. There are several manufacturers that I believe make the same type of equipment.
That's all I was looking for, is that we're not
Mhm.
locking into a certain manufacturer's sort of transmission protocol here. It's like we can continue to buy and procure equipment from different manufacturers to work together with this stuff.
Yeah, I can check up to see about the manufacturer we use for this one to make sure that they actually are interchangeable. But I do believe that that's something that actually is interchangeable with other ones.
I
get
appreciate
back-
the
I can-
confirmation.
Yeah, no worries. I'll get back to you about that too, council member.
Thanks.
Yeah, if you can just send that to the entire council, David, that'd be great. And Kyle, can you email Councilmember Dunn the updated page?
Just it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. All right, Mayor Pro Tem,
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
we can.
Kyle, I've kind of been looking for it, maybe I've missed it, but under the funding source, it talks about utility tax revenue. And beginning on our revenue summary, we're estimating 860,000. So I don't see that on this page. I'm assuming it's somewhere else, and I've just not identified where the rest of it goes.
So the funding source specifically for streets capital comes from the streets fund. So you'll see a line item in 110 streets fund that identifies an interfund transfer between fund 110 to fund 312 that funds this fund and these activities.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. And get past that page. All right, next is the Henry Kramer Road project from Mission to Appleway. I'm not quite sure. There's not much to update on that. We're waiting for the project to close out.
Will be dormant for 2023.
Yep. And we like it when these things go away.
One thing better than a slash is a zero.
Yeah. Harvard Road Mitigation Fund, again, we've discussed in the past how the money gets into this fund, and there's no activities for 2023. But I'm sure there will probably be something coming up in the future. So this just keeps ongoing. But one question I do want to, I haven't asked you yet, Lisa. I know it's been a while since we've increased those fees in the calculation. Can you remind me how often we do that, and should we start looking at that for 2023?
I would agree that we probably should be looking at that for 2023, given the escalating cost of capital projects. It's not that the capital projects that we have called out have changed substantially. They have not. In fact, they have remained pretty consistent. However, I think it's a good point that with escalating construction and equipment cost, that we should really be looking at an adjustment to that. And we would need to hire probably our on-call traffic engineer to update that.
Councilmember Cargill, go ahead.
This may be a stupid question, but I'll ask it anyway. The new developments coming in the Trutina neighborhood, we heard last week about the sewer issue that people are going to be coming into. My question is that going to increase any of these numbers dramatically, or is that basically just par for the course?
So I don't know the answer to that. We literally just got the amendment application in. We're gonna have to look and see what that does to traffic. My suspicion is that it's probably not going to materially change it. There may be some shift in numbers, but I really don't know the answer to that until I've had a chance to look at their SEPA and their traffic impact analysis, et cetera. We literally just got the application today and it's not even been deemed complete at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else on Harvard Road? Not seeing any. Next one is Library Capital Fund resources. Again, this is a percentage set by the ordinance that they get, and haven't really spent much of it over the last many years, but looking at this for contribution to either the design or the improvements to be made on the future building. Councilmember Cardinal,
Oh, sorry.
throwing
I'm
things.
throwing my pen at Annie. I apologize. I obviously the number that stands out to me was the interest in earning, the increase there of 74,000%. Is there an explanation for that, Kyle?
So, I'm looking at, so the interest in other earnings and finance. So what we have identified is our monthly lease payments from the lease that we have with the current tenant are allocated to this fund to support ongoing design efforts for the eventual relocation of the library.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
It's always good to see a positive 74,000% when it comes to revenue, right? All right, Mayor Pro Tem, did I see your hand?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you, Mayor.
gotcha. Anybody else on library? All right. Municipal Facilities Fund Master Plan. So this is new that we started talking. Oh, wait. This is not the new one. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is one we actually really haven't talked about a whole lot. And in fact, I had forgotten until this round of budget this year that it even existed. So again, we've got a fund out there with no activity plan. We really haven't spent anything since 2020. Kyle, do you want to walk us through again what this could be used for? Again, I'm looking at, the various projects we have coming with the netting at Trailhead, the library, Public Works, several things. Is this a fund for everybody else's education that we can use for some of those activities?
Certainly, and so the history is the most recent use of these funds was the Trailhead Master Plan, where this has kind of been a protracted discussion, and then we put this master plan together to kind of guide the future of the Trailhead project. And so that can be used with any number of other capital assets that the city has, including land and buildings, and how to proceed with those.
All right, Councilmember Van Orman.
So when you say utilized with all the other funds, so master planning, town square, street, master plan, can we utilize the funds for this?
That is my understanding, yes.
Pedestrian crossing too. I mean, like all the ones that are in here. In our capital facilities fund, we can, the
Yes,
planning.
so sidewalk master plan streets. I've lost a couple in there. Town square master plan, yeah.
Great.
Okay, police capital fund resources. Chief, I don't know if there's anything you want to point out on this. We're just,
The recent history on this is we've had a couple sizable donations that have been allocated towards use for the police department. And so we have separated those out to call them out for use by the PD as they see fit.
yeah, because there was the $50,000 donation from Rudine earlier this year. Any questions? All right, not seeing any. Watching the time. Okay, we're doing pretty good. Community Messaging Fund. So I know this is on the CFP, and I'm just going to go back to, my comment of, I know this was put in place back when we put the one on the corner at Trailhead. But in my mind, we have an amazing opportunity. I know I've said this before, to partner with Central Valley School District they've got the high school message board, they've got one at each elementary school here, just down the street. We've got the Selkirk message board. So if we can not spend $92,000 on one and partner with them, and they were agreeable to it when we had the discussion last, and it just kind of got dropped over the years. But they are willing to work with us and to use those messaging boards to get out some of the messages to our residents.
Yeah, I love how you think.
Go ahead,
I
Councilmember
think
Kurtz.
one of the questions that Jen addressed last year was, it seemed like there were maybe some communication gaps with being able to use it. And I don't know if that's where the gap is, I guess.
Could have been, and then with, Katie retiring and, it's just.
Yeah, so I just
Yeah,
wonder, if
so-
go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, so we have actually tied into their message boards on rare occasions, not on common occasions. Two of which, one was the water boil advisory we had a couple years ago. We were able to tap into their reader boards. At the time, it was just the two elementary schools, and I can't remember, I don't think Selkirk was up yet. And then when COVID hit, we did advertise and work with the principals on all of the message boards to put that, we were distributing COVID supplies. Beyond that, we haven't utilized them any other time, but they have cooperated to do some, much needed advertising for us, help us get the word out.
Yeah, and the thought is, school's out middle of June to beginning of September, which is when all of our events go on. So it really is a good timing to be partnering with them. So we'll get back with the school district. I've got Councilmember Cargill and then.
Can I ask one more
Councilmember-
question?
Oh, sure.
Is there a way to have some of the same information consistently that's on the main one here on this side of town, on that side of town too? I think that's one of the purposes of the messaging board over there, was to
Yeah.
have all the information. And if it's just once in a while,
Yeah.
I think that's where I'd like to see having the same communication on this one, on the ones over there, if we can coordinate that.
Well, Mark and I can pick a conversation back up with CV.
And we've had a preliminary conversation with them in the last week, and so
Okay.
that's ongoing.
Yeah, we haven't touched base since Friday, so we'll talk about that this week. All right, Councilmember Cargill and then Councilmember Dunn.
I had two questions. One, how much, does someone remember how much that sign was down there?
It's about 80,000.
It was 80? Okay. I guess my second question related to this is, it seems to me that it would be terrific if we could have some of these messaging boards that people would see right as they came into our community, coming off of I-90, either going east or west. So I don't know if we've ever thought about that. I'm sure someone has in the past, but it would sure be great to have one maybe up, tall in the roundabout there at Harvard and Mission, and then one over in this area as well when people get directly off the freeway. It sounds like.
I was just kind of
Sorry,
giggling because I'm thinking all the accidents that might.
Well, that actually in the MUTCD is one of the concerns, is why they're not put in places where people come on and off freeways especially. So you can see that even the signs that advertise the very few businesses that fit on those signs, I think there have to be at least a mile prior to the exit or to your leaving, going into the community. So
Okay.
But
you
we
check with
definitely.
David, I'm sure he
Yeah,
can.
we definitely need to increase the messaging, which is part of, what, the Community Engagement Commission can continue to help with on that messaging program as a whole.
I
not
just
for the
know
boards.
that one that's on the corner down here on
Mhm.
Country Vista and Liberty Lake, the reason why I think so many people see it is because they're stopped
Stop
there
yes.
at the
Yeah.
light.
Agreed.
Whereas if you're going by Ridgeline, if you're going by Selkirk, I mean, you're just driving past it. So if you don't see it there and read it in
Yeah.
a couple of seconds, you're done.
Yeah. Point taken. All right, Councilmember Dunn.
I think that the concept of shared messaging and, collaboration with the school district, for example, is great for urgent and, I'm going to say crisis kind of like situations, boil water. But the need for persistent messaging and I'd say awareness of, events is unique per the organization, per the location. I mean, Ridgeline is honestly pumping their great events. That's awesome. I wouldn't want them to need them to persistently pump the City of Liberty Lakes events. So I still foresee a need to have community messaging, specifically distributed. Yeah, the other side, River District somewhere.
All right,
So it could be great.
all right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, does anybody else have anything? on community messaging. We'll try to get through a couple more pages so we have enough time then to have a quick break before 7 o'clock. So underground utility, again, we're all very familiar with that. That's what we used. Just really great timing in that, we had $130,000 or approximately in that fund. And our bill came in for undergrounding the utilities at Trailhead just shy of that. So we're looking at continuing, obviously with your approval to put about $25,000 a year into that fund. You never know when an opportunity might present itself to use it. Councilmember Spencer.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Actually, going back to page 91,
Sure.
I forgot to mention that it looks like there's a typo on the bottom total line. It says police capital fund total resources. It looks like that was
Oh.
carried over from the previous.
Thank you. God, you didn't catch that either. We'll get that fixed.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so any questions on the underground utility? All right, and then we've got our building contingency fund. Again, another pretty easy one to follow. This was put in place several years ago when we had emergency over at the library where the roof was about to cave in. So at that point, we decided to put aside a certain amount, just in a savings account, basically, in case we had another emergency. And so we just replenish every year what we had spent the year before. So there's never anything planned for this, and hopefully we don't have to use it, but it is there just in case.
Mayor,
Yes.
it looks like the same mistake was made.
Yeah, it looks like it is for the
It's
rest
on
of the
every
budget.
page,
Yeah.
yeah.
Before I found them all, I will get that correct. All right.
All right, I just see the double line at the bottom, just
Right.
didn't even look at the description. Okay, and then we've got the Trailhead Improvements Project Fund. If you want, we'll just go, we can stop here and then pick up with that item. Hopefully, we'll have to decide when our next meeting is. We'll talk about that at the end of 7 o'clock and see when we want to follow up with our next budget meeting. So I know we got through quite a bit again today. So thanks, everybody. We're going to go ahead and take a break until 7 o'clock. We'll reconvene for our 7 o'clock meeting. Thanks. Okay, welcome everybody to our November 1st, 2022 regular city council meeting. We are here in chambers as well as live on Zoom. So welcome to everybody dialing in as well. We are going to go ahead and start our meeting with the invocation given by Councilmember Spencer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you please join me.
Our Father in heaven, we are indeed grateful unto thee this day for the opportunity that we have to gather together as citizens and community members here in Liberty Lake. We're so thankful for the privilege it is to live in this beautiful area and for the safety and the beauty that it provides and for all the wonderful activities always going on and for the opportunity that we have to work together as a community. We ask thy blessing to be upon us this evening as we counsel together and as we work together as a community to find solutions to the problems that we face and that we can come to a consensus on the different issues that are at hand. And we pray for all of these blessings and favors in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, all right, we'll go ahead and bring the meeting to order. Again, thanks everybody who's joining us here today. We will move straight to the roll call. Councilmember Cargill.
Present.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Present.
Councilmember Van Orman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Follier.
Here.
Councilmember Spencer.
Present.
Councilmember Dunn.
Happy to be here.
And Councilmember Solberg.
Here.
Okay, we have all present and accounted for. So we will go next to the agenda approval. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion at this time to approve the agenda as submitted.
Seconded. We have a second motion and a second by Councilmember Van Orman. Any discussion? Councilmember Cargill.
Thanks, Mayor. I was going to ask actually that we remove item B from the workshop discussion. I was the one who brought that up, but I think we're already too far down the path on budget items. And I know you had asked me to speak up in that part of the workshop. So I was going to suggest and make an amendment to just remove item 9B.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have second by Councilmember Spencer. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of amending or removing item 9B from the printed agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, not seeing or hearing. Oh, we haven't started I legislate yet, have we? Well, oh, we're not. Okay, gotcha. All right, so so we have had a motion and second and approval to remove budget process 9B. So we'll get back to the original motion. So you want to restate the motion?
As amended.
As amended? Okay, all right, so those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, we have an approved agenda. Thanks for that, Councilmember Cargill. We will want to take that up early in the year, though,
Yeah.
with regards to 2023. Appreciate that. Okay, and we are up to citizen comments. So just a reminder for everybody here in chambers and who have dialed in. If you'd like to make a comment here in chambers, there are what used to be white sheets now are white, used to be yellow, are now white half sheets on the table by the door. If you would fill out your name and a couple other items on there and give them to our city clerk, Kelsey. She will get them to me. And for those of you online, if you will send a note to Trevor, our meeting host today, he will keep tab and let me know who wants to speak. Everybody will have up to 3 minutes. This is truly a comment period. There's no back and forth with the council, but if there is some information that we need to get back to you, we'll make sure we have your proper contact information so we can respond to you guys. So we will go ahead and start with Maria Garcia Bachman. Welcome.
Thank you for allowing public comment. I take stock of my parenting skills regularly. I assess the job I'm doing by being introspective, discussing with my spouse, parents, and friends. I admit my perceived faults to my kids' teachers and administrative staff because it takes a village. And when I have done all that, I ask my kids how they think I'm doing. And it strikes me as I stand before you today to discuss who should have the right and responsibility to decide what books and content reside on the shelves of our public library. The more important question, one that has been asked but apparently not sufficiently answered, is whose responsibility is it to parent one's own children? Any parent who entertains the idea of banning books or usurping the power of a board to do its job is not doing theirs. Any parent who wants to take away the rights of others so they can protect their own children is accomplishing just the opposite. Who don't you trust? Why are we here again? Why do you doubt you have invested the time, energy, and diligence to impart good decision-making, not just to your children and families, but on the employees you have hired and the board members you have appointed? If you nurture your children, teach them your values, take them to church, monitor their social media access, influence who they spend their time with, and still feel the need to control everything outside the walls of your home, you must recognize you don't actually have control inside those walls. You're either doing your job as a parent or you're not. And while we may want validation from anyone willing to provide it, it's the job you took on, likely with some degree of understanding that you and your children would be part of a whole made up of many different parts, which you cannot control, at least not forever, and which you should never control on behalf of others. Taking away the freedom of the board to do its job now will not protect your children or families in the future. The real world is at their fingertips. It's at school, it's on Hulu, Netflix, TikTok. It's at their friends' houses when you're not. Let the board do its job and you do yours.
Thank you. I apologize, we didn't have the 3-minute clock up. I was watching those. So we will have that going forward. Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Thomas McLaughlin.
It's been a few years since I've been here. My name's Thomas McLaughlin. I live in Alpine Shores. I had a few ideas I'd like to share with you. But first of all, I'd like to congratulate where the city of Liberty Lake's going with the roundabouts, the new schools, the high school, junior school, the new bridge, doing a great job. And I had a couple ideas I'd just like to pass on. About 5-6 years ago, when Mayor Peterson was here, I had suggested that we put the countdown on the pedestrian stoplights, and city council actually did that. So I'm here tonight with a couple of ideas that you may like or you may not like. One idea is along Ridgeline High School where the sidewalk is. I would recommend that we might put some grass there between the street and the sidewalk, and then plant some trees right there along Ridgeline High School, because the traffic count is huge right there on Ridgeline High School, and everybody goes up and down Appleway or Country Vista. That's one idea. And the other idea is where the street is kind of closed. It's right there where the Walgreens, and across the street is the Washington Trust. And there's a little exit there. It's kind of closed. Is there something that's going to be done there?
Yes.
Okay, so I need to come to these meetings more often.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Okay, next up, Mark Saba.
You don't need to put me on a timer. I'm gonna be short and sweet. You know me, I'm Mr. Winter Glow. Just wanted to let everybody here, including everybody behind me and everybody here, we start setting up and we're asking for volunteers on Saturday, Sunday, and then the following weekend also. And we hope they get everything ready to go for our opening on the 19th. That's all I have.
Right, thank you. We timed you anyway. All right, next up is Abby Schuster. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm just here tonight to support our library board. The library is a tremendous asset to our community. I can't think of any other public resource that provides such a breadth of services and ideas to so many in our community. I've been a resident for almost 17 years, and as a library patron, I have full faith in the library board and their staff. I do not support the idea that the council would take library policy making authority away from the library board.
Thank you very much. All right, Shauna Dean.
I'm here also to speak about item 9C, the library board ordinance. Having the library board of trustees, whose members are appointed by the mayor, who is an elected official and confirmed by the city council, also mostly elected, some here have been appointed, determine library policies is the common sense approach to governing. Many of the council members here believe in smaller government and the constitutional right to freedom of speech. The library and the Board of Trustees are committed to the policies adopted by the Board of Trustees, including the collection development policy, which is one of 17 such policies that includes the First Amendment of the Constitution, which is the freedom of speech, the Library Bill of Rights, the Freedom to Read Statement, the Freedom to View Statement, and the Washington Library Association Intellectual Freedom Statement as values that they adhere to. Included in this policy is the statement that Liberty Lake Municipal Libraries Board of Trustees recognizes that there are individuals and groups with diverse interests, backgrounds, ages, and needs, and that the library was created to serve all of the people within the community it serves. When facing book challenges or book reconsiderations, members of the Library Board of Trustees do not get to base their review on their personal morality or their personal definition of what is obscene. We've committed to these policies and the standards these policies are based on and hold their review to the standard of strict scrutiny. If members of a board or a city council vote to ban books, they are infringing on the constitutional right of freedom of speech, which includes freedom to information. Infringing that constitutional right is held to a higher standard of review that may be required in policies of other public services and facilities. It's a fundamental right. And the court holds review to the highest standard of review, strict scrutiny. The decision must be narrowly tailored to address a compelling state interest. It's Constitutional Law 101. There's multiple cases that have been brought forward regarding censorship and book banning that have been struck down in the courts. And they've determined again and again that not only adults, but children have First Amendment rights, which include the right to receive information. Infringing on the constitutional rights of citizens opens the city up to a major lawsuit, and it's not a very fiscally sound policy. The board is in a position because of our experience and the guidance of our library director, who has a master's degree in this, when facing book challenges or book reconsiderations, to take into all of this account. We don't base our review on the personal morality of what we believe. We're committed to those policies. Libraries adopt those policies so that we don't infringe on people's rights. We don't.
Sean, I'm gonna have to stop you.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you so much for coming. All right, Trevor, do we have anybody online? No, okay, we don't have any comments online. And just know, for those in the audience and those online as well, that there will be another opportunity for citizen comment at the end of the meeting. Okay, that brings us to announcements, proclamations, and special presentations, which we have none. And then we jump to reports and inquiries. So we'll start with city council. Does anybody have any reports from council? Councilmember Cargill.
Well, I just want to say that, and I know Councilmember Van Orman was there as well. We were at the bed races on Saturday with the kids from Liberty Launch Academy, and it was a great time. The fall festival that they did, not only the bed races, but all day long. They had a bunch of Halloween stuff going on, and it was just terrific to see everybody out there. I'm a little biased because my son's team won the bed races. So, and they were the Bass Pro Shops fishing group. So they made their bed into a boat, but it's a great cause. I was glad to see so many different beds, obviously helping out with the Liberty Lake Lions Club and Sleep in Heavenly Peace. So just want to say thank you to everyone who participated.
Yep, that was fun. I don't know, those Barbie girls.
Yes, the
doing
Barbie
really
girls were good too,
well.
and the mayor was there, right?
All right, Councilmember Van Orman.
Just two things on that one. Not only did they win the race, but they ran it in 1 minute flat.
Wow.
That is faster than any adult team that we have had over the last 8 years. So that was amazing. And the fact that Liberty Launch Academy, all of those students made the 8 beds that were donated to Sleep in Heavenly Peace afterwards, along with pictures of the kids running the race. So great overall. Craft fair was free to all of those vendors. And I myself bought a wreath. It was amazing. Just overall fantastic, I would say. And then I know that we've got a ton of trick-or-treaters last night, Sunday night, the night before. So this community is rocking it.
All right, do we have any other council? Go ahead, Councilmember Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, my son and I were able to catch the last half of the Winter Glow setup on Saturday, and they've got a well-oiled machine. It was awesome to see inside the containers and what's going on there. So I'm excited to come this next Saturday, and I hope everybody will have a chance to come out and help because I'm a huge fan of Winter Glow. So thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mark, did we take advantage of the Ridgeline kids to help with setup? Okay. Oh, sure. Oh, good. Okay.
Rain, sun, or snow. Councilmember Solberg.
Well, just 3 kudos. First of all, to the first responders, our Valley Fire Department and Police Department for the way that they took care of people last night was out of sight and pretty careful. As far as I know, there weren't too many other than they could have been gunshots or could have been fireworks later on at night. But the whole community, the River District, certainly we were just inundated with people and everybody was well behaved. Even the parents this time didn't park in the middle of the street. They parked over on the side so that other cars could get by. I also want to thank our partners from the Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to an event with them last week, and thank you for the invites to go, and also to the Association of Washington Cities. The information that was there that I hope we're going to get a presentation and a report sometime on the pending legislation, because all of us need to be involved and at least support the things that are on their agenda. So thank you.
Great. Any other council? All right, great to hear from so many of you. I love it. Just keep staying involved. All right, so that brings me to my report. So I did send out my October brief report to the council a little bit earlier today, along with the upcoming November meetings. And I know I touched on some of this during previous meetings, so I won't go back too far. Winter Glow, yep, was able to help set up some on Saturday. I am amazed at how far the organization has come over the last several years. I remember the first year and nobody knew which way was up or what went with what, and it's spectacular. So hopefully we can get some more able-bodied people out there to do big things like scaffolding and whatnot. That being said, I also went to the Winter Glow fundraiser, and Mark, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe you guys raised about $10,000 from that dinner. So again, great kudos to that organization. So, and we've all been talking budget, but it's also policy meetings recently. So Councilmember Sahlberg, City Administrator Mark McAvoy, and I went to the AWC Cities on Tap last week. And so in each of the council members' mailboxes, you should have found the packet with regard that has the AWC legislative agenda for next year. As the ones from the Valley Chamber and Greater Spokane Inc. are published, I will get those to you as well. It's amazing how lengthy our priority lists get with the Valley Chamber and with GSI, and AWC has been able to whittle everything down to 5. So great job. And if you guys don't know, Betsy Wilkerson, who is on the Spokane City Council, is in line to be the AWC president next year. Great to have that representation from around here. And honestly, I don't usually see a lot of Spokane City Council people at those meetings. They're starting to show a better presence, and I had the opportunity as a fluke to get to know Betsy. We had an impromptu drive back from Vancouver from the AWC meeting when our flights got canceled. So I'm making that connection there as well. So we'll continue to make our needs known and get some attention on some of that. So just look for more correspondence, and then starting in January, you guys will start to see legislative updates, and we'll make sure you guys all have the meeting schedules. So when those updates are published, if you guys want to join in on, Valley does it, AWC does it, and GSI does it. So usually if you can catch one of those, and I'm sure Councilmember Cargo will be very up on the policy stuff as well, so he can give us some summaries. Besides that, I think, see what's coming up. More board meetings for the end of the year, and we do have the council should have received an email. If not, let us know. There's a high level, very small ribbon cutting at Western States Cat on the, I forgot what the date is. 21st, but they're going to do a big public one in the spring. So this one's for council members, staff, and some of their selected guests. So if you guys can make it, if you didn't get that email, let us know and we'll make sure you're on there. Other than that, I think that's plenty for me for today. We'll just keep you guys updated on those policy discussions. All right, now we're off to City Administrator Mark McAvoy with his report.
All right, thank you, Mayor, City Council, and members of the audience and those watching via Zoom. Tonight's report, starting out with events and reminders, walking down this list. We actually in earnest started yesterday, but wanted to report that throughout this week, you're going to see our parks being winterized. which includes all kinds of things, taking down nets, locking restrooms, blowing out water lines, those kinds of things, getting ready for the winter season. Leaf and Beach kicked off today. This is in partnership with the Liberty Lake Sewer and Water District, where residents can take bags to the Sewer and Water District and drop them off there. There is no pickup this year. More information about that is on our website and the Sewer and Water District's website. A reminder that a week from today, November 8th, is Election Day. Looking forward to that. A couple of days later, on Friday, November 11th, is Veterans Day. And this is a good opportunity to remind everyone that City Hall and the library will be closed in observance of Veterans Day. Later in the month, we've got the fall book sale that is sponsored by the Friends of the Liberty Lake Library, and that's going to take place at the library. And then finally, as Mark mentioned earlier, Winter Glow lights up on November the 19th at Orchard Park. Before moving to the remaining pieces of the report, any questions on any of those events or reminders? Okay. Moving on, the next three items, items 2, 3, and 4 on your list are really designed to give you a forecast of some action items that'll be coming your way, targeting future agendas as soon as November the 15th. And so these next three items, we're just going to go through and give you some high-level details, not designed to get down into the weeds, but want to give you a forecast of what's coming up. And so to start that off, Lisa's going to take the podium and talk to you about the Trailhead Restaurant lease. So Lisa, take it away.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So we hope to have on the agenda for our next meeting the lease between for the Trailhead Restaurant. As you may recall, Eat Good Group was the group that was selected. They are well-known number of restaurants hither and yon. Our lease proposal is starting at $19.50 per square foot, stays constant for the first 3 years, and then there's an escalator in there. We also have what they call a percentage rent, which is basically a percentage of gross sales after they make basically meet a break-even point. And so we will be bringing that back to you hopefully on the 15th. It's in review with Sean right now. And so hopefully we'll have that back. We will be coming forward at a later date with an addendum related to catering. And we have kind of an outline of that, but we have not put that document together yet. So that will be a future item also for your consideration. Questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
And I'll say before we go through the rest of these, the goal also would be to get you these documents well in advance of the 15th or whatever date they end up on the agenda so that you can have time to review them. Next one is the Legacy Church lease, and I've got that one. And so as you all know, the city purchased the property at 23129 Mission Avenue in September. I believe we closed on the 8th. And so we entered into a letter of intent with Legacy Church for Legacy Church to continue to lease that facility. And the letter of intent is basically agreeing to an 18-month term with a fixed rate. It's a triple net lease. And so again, we have gone through the process of reviewing that draft lease with Legacy. And we're in the final stages of putting the final lease document together. And again, the goal would be to get that in front of you on the November the 15th agenda. Wanted to brief you this evening. And then, like I said, as soon as we have a final document, getting that to you so you have plenty of time to review it in advance. Any questions about the Legacy Church lease? All right, and so the final item in this grouping is the camping ordinance update. We've talked a little bit about this before in prior council meetings, and I'm going to ask Chief Simmons to give you a bit of an update on this one and what you can expect over the next couple of weeks. Chief.
Good evening, members of the council, Madam Mayor. This week, I completed a preliminary draft of a new camping public camping ordinance for the city. Bottom line up front, the purpose of this ordinance is, number one, to prevent harm to the health and safety of our citizens. Number two, to keep public streets and other public property readily accessible by the public or to the public. And finally, to tend to the welfare, safety, and provide due process to any individuals who are homeless that we contact in the city. So moving forward, you will see potentially 3 changes to Chapter 8 of our city ordinance. And the first one will be in the definition section. The second will be in the rules of governing use of facilities section. And finally, in that section, hopefully we'll have a new city ordinance titled Public Camping. So that ordinance will, number one, make it unlawful for anyone to camp on any street, sidewalk, publicly owned property, publicly owned parking lot, et cetera, to include City Hall and any city-owned property. So that would include like the public works yard, the public library, et cetera. And also it will make it illegal for individuals to store personal property in any of those areas. And lastly, it will give us, per case law, the process in which to remove individuals who are camping on any publicly owned property. And that, so to make sure that we're in line with Boise or Martin versus Boise. And so currently I have, or recently I sent an initial draft of that to Sean Bouts, and hopefully he can get through that and give me some guidance on where we need to move forward, and I can get that on the agenda November the 15th.
Thanks, Chief. I've got a question for you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Chief. What I'm sure you know the answer. My question is, I noticed you didn't comment about private roads, which we have a lot of in the city. So is that off bounds or something like this?
So private property, when it comes to camping, that is a trespassing issue. So that the choice of removing someone who is camping from a privately owned road or private property is up to the property owner. Now, we have had issues with that in the city, and those property owners, including on some of the private roads, where we have individuals who camp in their vehicles, they've been really cooperative with us with getting those individuals moved on. But if it's a privately owned road, we have to get permission from the property owner, the owner of that road, to get those individuals moved on. If the property owner doesn't want to do anything about it, we're kind of at a standstill, and we'll have to find some other way or resource or some other method to help those individuals.
And if it's an HOA?
That's up to the HOA.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And it's as simple as, you know, a member of the board of the HOA or the head of the HOA saying, we want that person moved on. If an HOA wants that person moved on, that person needs to move on, or they're trespassing.
So that'll be a part of the ordinance?
No, that won't be part of the ordinance, because that is a different issue. We're talking publicly owned property versus private. Private is, again, it's up to each individual property owner or the HOA. So that is a different issue. That's kind of apples and oranges when it comes. We're talking trespassing versus actual illegal camping on public property.
Perfect. Thank
So
you.
a public versus private, two different things.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. These next couple of items are similar. They go together, and they stemmed out of our prior conversations at council meetings regarding the budget. And if you all will remember, there was a discussion a few weeks back on the utility tax. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure that we were following up and giving you the best information, and also using that as an opportunity to communicate with the public about what some of the opportunities were to get rebates on utility taxes. And so the city actually has a program that addresses that. And so I'm going to ask Kyle Dixon to provide you with a bit of an update and some details on that program. Kyle?
Thanks, Mark. Quick mic check. Are we loud and clear?
Yep.
Excellent. So I'm gonna present what has been in place for some time, but just a run through for council and those on in the audience and on Zoom, our utility tax rebate program. And so this was obviously born out of the origination of our utility tax. And it provides an opportunity for low income, elderly, disabled individuals that live within the limits of Liberty Lake to get a rebate on their utility taxes paid up to 100%. And so I just want to run through that for everybody. We will have a kind of a renewed campaign to get this information out to the community for those folks to be able to take advantage of it. And so your main criteria here is who is eligible. So obviously you must live within the city limits of Liberty Lake. You pay household utilities that you can show you're at least 62 years old or disabled, and your annual gross income for your household in any given year. This is the most recent year, 2021. We'll have the second round for 2022 available for rebates next year. And this is based on the median income for Spokane County area as defined by the Department of Housing and Urban Development is at or below 80%. And so these are these benchmarks that you see for household size, maximum combined household income to qualify for the utility tax rebate program. And so it goes through and identifies more what that eligible income is, what documents are required, obviously proof of residency, and then 1040s or W-2s, utility bills showing street address of residence, and then as many as you have. And if you don't have all of your utility tax bills, you can reach out to those utilities and get those bills. And you just need to show that those have been paid to qualify for that reimbursement. So what our deadline is every year is September 30th. We can discuss if we want to move that out more based on the low volume that we have received in the past. This was a chance for city staff, if we did get inundated with rebate applications, to be able to process those before the end of the year. And so September 30th was the deadline, obviously, for the prior year's utility tax payments to qualify for a rebate. And so it goes on to say that you are eligible, if all of that criteria is met, you are eligible to receive 100% of the utility tax charge in the prior year. And then it outlines when. And so it's basically as those applications come in, we process those, and then we can include it with the next batch of council checks. So it's on a rotating basis that, we can pretty much process those in real time. And so moving along to the second page here, here's what your application looks like. You're identifying the criteria that you have to meet. You're identifying residents in the household. You're identifying all of your annual income, residency, and those documents that prove that you are paying utility tax. And here's your worksheet. And so city staff is more than happy to help anybody out that either needs help determining if they're eligible or help processing this documentation for the first time if they're having any questions. And so I just wanted council and those to be aware that we are going to have a new campaign to try to push this information out to the community to hopefully get some more participation.
Thanks, Kyle. Any questions? Councilmember Cargill.
Well, I was just gonna say, originally, before I looked through this, obviously I thought the utility tax rebate program was a great idea, and I still do. I just, as I look through this and as I hear Kyle talking, I can understand why people wouldn't want to fill this out. And I can understand why people would not want to send in their income tax return and list all the names of every single person and the ages living in their house. And then every single month on page 2, going through and keeping track of all their bills and putting how much they paid in electric and natural gas and cable. And so it is a burden. And I hope we remember that when we're considering how many people actually go through the process.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Jen.
Thanks,
Sorry,
Mayor.
Councilmember Spencer.
Yeah, no problem. The question I had is this something that's going to be needing to be renewed on a yearly basis, or would there be the ability to fill it out once and have it span across multiple years? And then the follow-up question would be, and I think we kind of talked about this last time, just to reiterate, there is no mechanism that we have available to identify these individuals and just simply pass those savings on?
So I have reached out to Avista, their regional representative, to discuss exactly this, and is there a mechanism for them to identify on kind of a rolling basis who would essentially qualify for these? And they are currently looking into that. I am waiting for their feedback on exactly what processes they have in place to identify, if any. And then the further discussion was how can we coordinate with all of our utilities if there is a mechanism like that to where we can identify by the account who qualifies. That's admittedly, that's a big lift to put on these utilities, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And so trying to get, I guess, full participation from all the utilities to participate in this program is another thing we'd be looking into based on that response we get from this.
Councilmember Kurtz?
Is there a way we can coordinate with SNAP as a municipality since they have all of this information already?
They may, well, I don't know. I don't know what all the records they have. They probably don't have everybody's income level, but that's a good idea.
People who qualify for,
Yeah.
that have gone through a process to
Right.
qualify for energy assistance or other kinds of
Great,
assistance.
great idea. You know, and even if, I mean, heck, I'm willing to personally get out there and knock on doors. You know, we've got, you know, lower income apartments and senior housing on the east side of town, and to at least get the information out there. You know, we're gonna make a really huge concerted effort in 23 to get this out. Go ahead, Councilmember Cargill.
Kyle, is there a way, obviously, we talked at the last meeting about the fact that businesses pay a lot into this. Obviously, the utilities know if it's a residential or a business, right? So, I mean, theoretically, couldn't we say, okay, we're just gonna do it? Basically, it's waived if it's residential. And if so, isn't that a small percentage of the overall that we've been talking about?
That is another discussion that I will, so we started that discussion. I will expand on that with our contact with Vista to try to identify what that percentage looks like, because I don't want to over or understate what residential versus business is, because I don't know the answer to that. But I'll try to get some sort of breakdown from Vista if they can provide that information.
I think they did say they can whittle things down by industry, I think is what
Yeah.
Melanie said after the last meeting. So we are working on that, but I don't believe, Sean can jump in, I don't believe there's any way we can waive it for residential and just charge it to business. I don't think that's possible, is it?
No, I don't believe that's correct. All right, I believe that's correct. Yes, sorry.
No, but it'll be really telling when we get those numbers from the Vista, because I'm sure we can extrapolate some of that to the other categories as well. Okay, great.
All right, and the last item on the report this evening is related, talking about property tax relief. If you all will remember on I believe it was the 18th, Tim Holman came and during citizen comment talked about property taxes. And one of the specific things that he brought up was a question, and he said, can you, and he was meaning the council, lock the tax in? And so this portion is going to be less detail oriented than Kyle's, primarily because there are 5 programs and trying to plumb the depths of each program with different requirements isn't the intent of this item. It's just to point out that there are available property tax relief programs that the state has codified in state law. And so we are going to work to make this information known on our website, through our social media channels, just to make sure that our residents are aware that these programs exist and how to plug into them. But just so that they are known, there's a property tax assistance program for widows and widowers of veterans that's administered by the state. There is a deferral program, property tax deferral program that the state administers through each county. And that's for homeowners with limited income, for seniors, and for those with disabilities. And then there's also a property tax exemption program that the state operates through the counties again, for the same breakdown for people on limited income and for senior citizens and people with disabilities. So all of that information for each program is available on the Department of Revenue's website. And it talks about how to plug in, how to determine if you're qualified, how to apply, who to contact to get more information. We're going to pass that along again on our website and social media channels so that our residents have that information and can take advantage of these programs if they choose to do so and if they meet the qualifications.
Yeah, and we also talked about, we'd like to do some citizen academies next year, and this would be a perfect first one to go with, to educate our citizens better on how they can save money and how they can get some of these rebates if they're eligible.
Yeah, absolutely. Property taxes in general is such a broad topic that I think it would fit nicely into one of those academy classes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Spencer?
Thank you. Yeah, Mark, and maybe you only had a high level look at this, but are some of those programs going to help across all the spectrums of the property tax? Because I know we brought up the fact that the amount coming out of property tax from the city of Liberty Lake compared to the overall tax bill is very small. So I'm just curious as to whether some of those programs are spanning across some of those bonds and levies and things like that.
So each program has different levels of either deferral or exemption, but using the exemption example, they affect every strata of property tax. And so the answer to the question is yes, it just depends. Your qualifications guide which level you qualify for. And so there's a lot of, it depends in the answer because it's really individually focused based on qualifications.
Well, just as a follow-up, it's kind of a curious, question because, you can vote for those bonds and levies, which increase the property taxes, but could, potentially not have to pay them. So it seems like kind of an interesting conflict of interest, but just kind of a curious question.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you.
So that concludes my report, Mayor.
Great,
Thanks.
thank you. All right, we will move on to Community Engagement Commission report. Is anybody here? Mark Sala, other hat.
You just talked about the the city academy, and we talked about that at our October meeting. Mark McAvoy presented the idea of a city academy to the that the city staff would initiate for next year that would involve multiple sessions of community members to learn about the operations of the city's government and public services. The CEC would be supporting this effort by suggesting areas of focus for which the sessions that would be important to the residents to know. The CEC would also be providing suggestions on methods to promote the City Academy to the public and to create interest for this. We also discussed the opportunity of a city podcast. The city staff members are also interested in starting up a podcast that would relay interesting and entertaining insights about the city's operations, staff members, special events, and community life. The CEC would be supporting this event by suggesting topics for installments and helping to promote this podcast once it gets started. The CEC is also continuing to look into at technology resources to help facilitate the engagement of public opinions on the city matters. The group that will have, the CEC will be having a presentation from another potential resource vendor called Zen City during a special online session next week. Also at the October meeting, the CEC discussed its engagement activities with the public during the 2022 farmers market. Some members suggested that the city station or tent be relocated further away from the music next year in order to make better facilitate conversations with people who are visiting the city's tent. Just a suggestion there. Because there was a couple times when we were out there and the music, well, they had a drummer out there that just banged the heck out of it and yes, we can talk to, yeah, it was pretty uncomfortable, but that's okay. We made through it. And finally, as the CEC continues to develop in its roles and functions throughout this first year, the group's looking forward to helping assist with public engagement with the city's budget process for next year. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, thanks for.
We're moving along. You're
Thanks.
welcome.
All right, salary commission.
Speaking of, I'll take this update though. And so I just want to let council, mayor know that salary commission has met twice this year to discuss wages for elected officials for 2023. They will have a public hearing on Tuesday, November 15th at 5 p.m. So that's right ahead of our next regularly scheduled council meeting. And at that public hearing, they will put forth a recommendation to increase council member salaries by 5% and have the mayor maintain status quo. The rationale behind that was most recent data from similar cities with a similar form of government and recent increases.
All right, thank you. All right, and so that should be, if that recommendation goes through, that should be an adjustment down in some of the expenses in the budget that's out there. So I think we had
Correct.
1.5 or 8.5 in there for
That's
council. case. All right. Okay, Spokane Valley Fire Department, Chief Soto. Welcome.
Madam Mayor, council members. So I am presenting this month's council presentation. However, I'm going to be covering some other items with the department, and I apologize for the size. I was hoping to be a little bit better for you all. So I want to start off just talking a little bit about, you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you, sir. Talking a little bit about the department itself and where we're at. Again, we are governed by a 5-member elected board. The biggest thing I want to talk about is right now we have 196 personnel, but we're a little bit short right now. We've been going through a lot of retirements, so we are down about 38 bodies right now, but we are fixing to hire about 32 of those, and the other 4 are civilians. So we're going through all that right now. We're still are still increasing on calls. I'll get more on that in a little bit. 82% of our calls are EMS in nature. We are following our 5-year strategic plan, and that gets us through the end of next year, and then we'll put together the next one. The bottom line is we're fiscally responsible and we don't carry any debt. Next slide, please. One of the biggest things I seem to hear or get questioned on is what are we, what do we do? You're a fire department, right? So you just go to fires. Well, the answer to that is no, we're an all hazard agency. A lot of people, again, really do not understand that. And I can honestly tell you here within our county, nobody offers everything that we do. So I will, I'm going to get a little bit of callous there, patting ourselves on the back, but we do offer the most in this county and within the state as a whole. So those are all the items that we do. Next slide, please. So some of our key initiatives is prevention and firefighting practices. Obviously they save lives and save property, and we are spot on with that. We're nationally recognized for a community risk reduction program. I can tell you that the National Fire Academy and most of the nationwide conferences always have us speak. We're always speaking about us and what we're doing here in our response areas. So it's pretty awesome. And we take that serious, and we're always there continuing to be better. Pit crews, CPR practices. What can I say? We are number one in not just this state, but in the country. So that goes not just to us, but to our citizens who sit there and obviously they call 911 right away and they participate. And I know we talked a little bit here about next month honoring a young man, Ethan. And those are the things that that have helped us gain that notoriety. And in that, shout out to the police department, Liberty Lake Police Department has also helped in. So next slide, please. So some things that you may not know, but I'm going to go ahead and bring to your attention is over the last 5 years, we have saved on average $103 million in businesses. So that's a pretty big deal, especially in community where we're trying to grow and continue to grow. If you compare that to what has been lost, 1.8 million per year, that's a small drop in the bucket. And most of that is what we call primary fire damages. Secondary would be what the fire department does when we get there to get inside of your facility or your business. We are still averaging 700, almost 800 smoke alarm installs. That's a huge thing for us. I love it. In fact, tomorrow we'll be doing a smoke alarm blitz. And that is something that we have a firm foothold, not just with the community, but with all the stakeholders who help participate or donate. And so we get in there and we mix it up, and we've saved 11 lives from 2016 to 2021. And that is a big deal. We're second to none on that. And I'm very proud of our personnel, especially our prevention division that get out there, community risk reduction specialists that get out there and really push this narrative and get in there and do it. For cardiac arrest survivors, we are 72% above the national average over the last 3 years. So again, we're pretty good at what we do, and our community is right there with us, helping us out. So over the last 8 years, in case you're wondering, we're still 52% over the national average over 8 years. So again, we're just striving to be better. During that time frame, or during the time frame of 2014 to 2021, we have saved 116 lives. And when I say that, sometimes people get confused and they think, hey, you had a ROSC, and that's a return of spontaneous circulation. And sometimes we go on calls and you'll say, hey, we got a pulse back, and we go to the hospital. And people think, oh, that's a save, you saved them. We don't count those as saves because we have brought a pulse back. But if they walk out of the hospital on their own and live a normal life, that is what's considered a cardiac save. So it's a much higher bar that we hold ourselves to. And those are those 116 lives that we have saved. And this is where I can tell you, for cities of 100,000 people or more, we are number one in the United States of America. So next slide, please. Growth, obviously the area we are living in is continually growing. We're up 9% in population since 2019. So we're just over 136,000 residents that we are responding to. More of a bigger concern for me as fire chief is since 2013, we've seen an 80% increase in call volume. So that's a pretty astronomical number. In fact, in the master plan for 2025, 2014 was the master plan, and they estimated by 2025 that we would be at 15,000 calls. Well, we passed that a long time ago. So we're 62% over what they perceived where we would be in a few years. We're 6% ahead of next year's call, or I'm sorry, we're 6% ahead of last year's calls right now. So again, we're busy and we're doing our best to short things up. Next slide, please. So currently for this month and year to date, we had a total of 1,929 911 calls this past month, and that turned into 2,347 responses. And again, that number, your responses are always going to be more than your incidents because there are certain call types that require more units to respond. Year to date, we're at just under 19,000, and total responses just over 22,500. So we're moving. So next slide, please. So this next slide, what's going to show is last year's heat map. Oh, actually, that one. So that's last year's 2021 heat map. And then if you go to this year's heat map, there you go. It's a little bit hotter. So you can tell that the differences, obviously, the more yellow, the more times we're going to that area. So that we're definitely busy. And If you're wondering what the yellow dot was here in our area, that's the Guardian. So it does keep us busy and it keeps them busy, I'm sure as well. Next slide, please. So upcoming, obviously, next year, we have our maintenance and operations levy, so that will go to vote to the citizens. And we'll get ready to start that whole process. So after the November 8th elections. Next slide, please. Currently, still maintaining our 2020 levy dollars in action. Our key purchases in replacement of our vehicles, we had 3 brand new fire engines that we bought. They arrived this year, and we put our first one in service last week, and that's engine 9. And the unit it replaced was a 14-year-old frontline engine with 160,000 miles and 13,225 engine hours. I will tell you that's a lot. I'm more concerned with the 13,225 engine hours because that's telling me how often it's on, running on poles, pumping water, things of that nature. The bottom line is, and I want our citizens to really understand, is we're not just trying to replace trucks every 5 years or even 10 years. We're really trying to get the most bang and buck out of them. And so I think that shows our fiscal responsibility and how important that is to us. Next up, we do have our new engine 4 and new engine 5 in place. So we're getting ready to put them into service as soon as we are able. We're busy, and so there's a lot of things going on. And our last slide, please. Any questions? And feel free to visit us at SpokenValleyFire.com. Yes, sir.
Chief, thanks for the good job that everybody does. The Kramer Road delay impacts the call time to the River District in some cases because of the move of the facility over across the lake. Where are we in terms of another facility that might be serving Otis Orchards, Green Acres, and River District? Is that on the next level?
In responding
In another
to calls, so fire station, what we're talking about.
Yes.
So a couple things there, and you'll see that on our next M&O. And what we're looking at doing is building a new training facility instead of a new fire station 11 there at Barker and Garland. And the reason for that, for me, as the fire chief and with the citizens' trust in me, I had to look at 2 things. Number one is call volume versus the monetary cost of things, especially right now in these odd and very turbulent economic times. So if you look at the call volume right now in the Otis Orchards area, the call volume is very low still. If you combine that with with what we are projecting growth there right now, we still have some time. And so what I'd like to do is put in the new training facility, the one that we currently have right there by Station 5 is literally falling apart.
That's unsolved.
Yes, sir. And it's pretty bad. In fact, right now we had, we're replacing a lot of the foundation just right outside the tower. And it's kind of hard to do even when you're trying to run these fire academies. So it's a 30-plus-year-old facility. In fact, you can't even use the tower. You can't burn in it anymore. It's just falling apart. So my concern is having a place to train our firefighters so that they are the best, so that when we do respond, we are doing the best that we can. So I want to put in that new training facility at that same location, a few hundred yards down from where the future Station 11 will go. But within that training facility, I am going to put in a small fire station, temporary fire station. So if we need to stand one up, it'll be there and ready to go. However, in the next levy cycle, so your 2028, if you will, that's when we're looking to potentially put in the new fire station. We'd like to get started maybe towards the end of this next levy cycle, but that's where we're at. I had to weigh what is needed right now and what can wait just a little. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Any other questions for the chief?
Just a comment.
Sure, go ahead.
I hear there's might be a National Guard outfit coming to town. Have you thought about coordinating efforts with them for your training center?
Honestly, sir, no, sir. We already have the land and we've already put down the foundation, if you will, in the driver's training area and giant really foundation for the new future tower. So right now it's a no, just because we're already set, we're already going, we're already putting the plans are already being made. So we're running.
Just curious.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thanks, Chief. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right, next we have Liberty Lake Water and Sewer and Water District. Don't see anybody here. I don't see anybody online, so I guess we don't have a sewer and water district report. All right, that brings us to our workshops. First up is our 2023 to 2028 capital facilities plan.
So good evening again, Mayor and council members. I'm going to be relatively quick because we've workshopped this a fair bit, and this is really your show. I did provide you with paper copies of the prioritization matrix, and I just want to just very briefly touch on that. Can you go to the next slide, please? So looking at facilities first, what you're going to see is that your priorities line up very well with the capital facilities plan. So your number one, the driving range for Trailhead is in 2023. Library facility upgrades, we've got design in 2023 with construction in 2024 and 2025. Town Square Master Plan, we're beginning that process in 2023 with it wrapping up in 2024. Rocky Hill Park shade structure is in 2023, and public art is also funded for multiple years. So really lines up quite nicely. Next slide, please. In terms of transportation, again, you're going to find similarly now, there's a little bit of difference in what the timing for different projects that have to do with the order of magnitude of projects that staff is juggling. So some things that are priorities are a year out just because of staff capacity. The 2024 pavement condition study and master plan is scheduled for 2024. The Liberty Lake Road slip lane is in 2023. We've got Country Vista Boulevard and Apple Way turn lane. We've got design in 2023 and construction in 2024. And again, that's got to be a 2-year cycle because we've got some right of way to acquire. Mission Avenue overlay, Country Vista to Moulter is a 2024 project. Smart Signal Control is a 2023 project because we have all our signals done at last. The Mission Avenue frontage improvements on the south side, city limits to Glenbrook, we've got design in 2023 with construction in 2024. And I did also want to comment just quickly that I was checking into the Safe Routes to Schools program. So in Washington, we do it on a 2-year cycle with the biennium budget. And so grant applications for Safe Routes to Schools is not due until, it will not be open until 2024. The applications will actually be due mid 2024 with funding in 2025. So our timing on that, we may want to look at that if we're thinking about going after that grant application. We can make that decision next year after we've got the design completed. What else do we have? Next slide, please. So as for pedestrian, again, your pedestrian crossing allocation, obviously we've got funding in 2023. Sidewalk master plan 2024, and that is, again, I want to remind you that has to align with the pavement master plan because of the data that we're going to be gathering there. Sidewalk maintenance is an annual, and the sidewalk improvements Madison to Mission are on the schedule for 2026. do want to add that Mr. Cargill did add Mission Avenue, North Side, Rocky Hill to MTC. On that, I also had some questions at the last, workshop related to the cost. I do have cost information on that. If it's constructed next year, so designed and constructed next year, the cost would be about $353,000. Of that, about 25,000 is design cost. It would escalate again to do the construction in 2024. Again, I did also check with the state regarding safe routes to schools. And because I didn't know the answer to this question, I thought you might be interested. Yes, private schools do count as long as the project is within 2 miles of the school, whether it's private or public. So that would potentially be eligible. But again, as I said, the timing is not until, we couldn't even apply for it until 2024. Having said that, next slide, please.
Lisa,
Yes.
before you move on, is that something that with the SRTC, the block grant funds that we were talking about, the technical committee and the other committee that we might be able to put in for before 2024, 25? Is next spring another application deadline?
Not for the Safe Routes to Schools grants, but through some other grant programs potentially, but
block grant.
nothing that the state does will be allotted until, I mean, the applications will be in 2024 for 2025 funding.
Lisa, can I ask one more question? That 350, was that just the Rocky Hill one and not the Mission Avenue on the?
That is correct.
It's just, okay, so do you know ballpark, how long of a gap we're talking about on Mission on the north side as well? Is it similar? Would it be in the similar price range or?
So I know what the price range is for, it's in the capital facilities plan. Give me a second and I will, yes, so those are the. Yeah, so that is, it is, it's probably close to 2.5 to 3 times as long, the Mission Avenue section. We're looking at 62,000 for design in 2024 and 947,000 for design in 2025. And the costs for those, by the way, were estimated based upon the most recent sidewalk project that we did on the north side of Mission, and then just based upon the frontage that we're talking about, and obviously inflated using the same inflationary figures that we've used for all the other projects.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So next slide, please. So again, this is, I just wanted to take a second to pause and share with you kind of how funding has been allocated in 2023 for capital projects. Parks and public facilities is the vast bulk of it, almost $7 million. But again, that's both Trailhead and the library facility are the big ticket items. Transportation, we're just under $1 million for the transportation projects, but keep in mind, in part because we're continuing on with last year's projects and because it's intended to be somewhat of a planning year just because the staff is stretched so thin. Trails and pedestrian pathways, we're looking at 230,000, and equipment and technology is about 1.6 million. And that's both heavy equipment and IT equipment. So with that, next slide, please. This is really your workshop, your opportunity to ask questions. I did actually bring a paper copy this time, so I'm a little better off this time.
Go ahead, Councilmember Cargill.
Lisa, can you go back one slide on this? Thank you. Is that 2% on trails and pedestrian pathways? Is that usually what it's like, or that just seems really small?
I think it's small in order of magnitude, because we don't have a lot of construction projects next year other than the flashing beacons, and we do have 3 or 4 that are going to be actually constructed next year. And they'll be going out to bid shortly, so that we can get the best price and hopefully get a good deal and possibly even be able to come back for another 1 or 2. We'll have to see how that goes. But we are waiting for the engineer's opinion of probable cost before we go out to bid, so that we can tailor that in a way that I'm not coming back to you and saying, well, we're over again.
Yeah.
That being said, I think it's more a function of the major parks and public facilities projects that we have. And again, if you look at what we have in terms of the prioritization matrix, we're really very well aligned with what your priorities are in terms of, and again, it's not exactly priority for priority, but there is a balancing of funds and a balancing of workload also involved in the kind of planning for that.
I got Councilmember Dunn and Councilmember Spencer.
Lisa, on this slide, I guess I'm feeling like this is a pretty substantial capital specifically outlay this year in comparison to prior. You don't have grand total here, but could you kind of compare what we're witnessing 23 to prior year?
Yeah, I can actually tell you what the grand total is if you give me 1 second. The grand total is, again, we've had a few big years also, and we'll have another big year next year when we kind of set up on the Kramer Parkway overpass potentially. So I do have a total here somewhere. I'm sorry, I'm not finding it.
No, that's okay. But what I'm trying to observe is the capital investments in the current period are, to my perception, really big in comparison to prior year.
Yes.
Just wanted to.
And I would say that the last couple of years, we've really seen a major investment. In part, I think, because of the strategic planning that council underwent and the priorities that were laid out and the need to really invest both in new facilities, but also in maintenance of existing facilities. And I think that that's reflected in the capital facilities plan. But yeah, this is a big year. It's 9.146 million.
I guess to refer to the trails and pedestrians section as a de minimis part of this, to me though reflects just the huge investments in the other sections of our current period. So thanks.
Sure. Thank you.
Councilmember Spencer, you're next.
Thanks, Lisa. My only question was, I know we've been getting updates, based on the feedback we've been submitting and changes. I was just curious, were there any major changes that were made based on the matrices that we filled out? Or
No,
any changes at all? I'm just curious.
no, actually, because we just completed the matrices and the draft plan was already out and noticed for public hearing. So, no, there haven't been, but I want to make the point that again, staff participates in these council meetings on a regular basis. We're listening to you. We're paying attention to you. The mayor's paying attention to you and giving us direction. And so it's our best effort to try and align our proposals with what we're hearing from you all.
And I appreciate that. I know we talked about kind of right at the outset of kind of budgeting season that, perhaps we could look at this a little bit sooner so everybody has a chance to get it submitted, and maybe we give a little bit harder deadline for the council members, the slackers.
We're revamping the budget schedule for 2023.
I will say this, that it's because we actually really start the process for the capital facilities plan in May and June when we're working on the transportation improvement plan that we have to adopt. And that may be a trigger for me to say, hey,
let's talk about prioritization matrices.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll go, Mayor. Thank you. Just two questions, because we've really gone over this in depth in previous meetings. My biggest one is on the Country Vista rebuild. I was driving down that stretch of road the other day and noticed that there's no approaches established for the undeveloped part for a long stretch. And I expect that will happen as it's developed on either side of that road. So my question there is, I know we've talked about this before. Do we push that out to the end of our CFP plan, with the end result being after it's close to a percentage of developed, that's when we can address it?
That is a possibility, but I want to assure you that you have in code today a requirement that those driveways and intersections have to be offset by 300 feet. And we have been working through the binding site plan process, working with development, and I've got binding site plan applications going on out there right now to identify the location of the intersections and the driveways and trying to get that alignment between them. And we have done actually a really, really, really good job as a city of preserving that 300-foot separation that sets the table for us to be able to do it. And we will plan for those approaches. We will plan for those approaches when we do the design for it. So if the concern is that we're not going to adequately be able to address those approaches, it's a non-issue actually, because we already have it in code, the requirement for that separation.
I understand, and I know you're all over it. Things change, that's all I'm saying. And then I have a little small one. I did, after the comment about the sidewalk, the non-sidewalk from Rocky Hill to MTC, I drove by there after our last meeting and took a look at it and saw some people walking on that side of the street actually. And it's already a gravel pathway. You can see where people have used it daily. I guess my request would be, is there any harm in maybe improving the gravel trail sooner than later? And here's why. At where it meets the sidewalk, where it is currently there, there's a very large transition difference from the gravel grade to the concrete grade. And there's some spilled over concrete from when they poured it. So it's like dinosaur dropping, is you don't just kick that stuff and move it, it's there, right? Kids were loving it. I saw some kids on bikes, that's cool, but the people walking, it's a little bit of a step up. So I'm wondering, in the short term, can we do something like that instead of 350,000 in 2 or 3 years from now?
So I don't have a cost estimate for doing asphalt, that I just didn't have a comparable project to get that in this time frame.
I mean, I'm just wondering about some 5/8 gravel compacted just to improve what's currently there.
That's a possibility. That when we did that on Mission Avenue, though, we actually had grindings from the repair project that we did that we could apply to that. We don't have any grinding stockpiled at this point. We could possibly do that with tied to another grind and overlay project. And so that's a possibility that we do that in a much sooner time frame. Coupling it with that and do exactly what we did on Mission Avenue, which wasn't terribly expensive. I mean, it's not a permanent solution, but it's
Okay.
certainly a temporary solution.
Is that something we really need on the capital facilities plan though?
That kind
can
of
we take-
project, no, we could wrap that into, as I said, a grind and overlay. So I think that's something that we could do. When we're closer to one of these grind and overlay projects, we might come back to you and kind of I can take a look at what that cost would be, but it would probably be within a cost range that probably wouldn't require us to really put it into the capital facilities plan. So there are some solutions for that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure we got it. Okay, Councilmember Cargill.
So the 350, Lisa, is for complete concrete, trees,
For-
landscaping, everything?
Not trees. It would be for the sidewalk. the asphalt sidewalk or the concrete sidewalk. Yeah.
All right, Councilmember Solberg.
Lisa, remind me, we didn't have any irrigation lead on Mission, but isn't there irrigation along the area that we're talking about there on the Meadowwood?
On Meadowwood, there is, not on Huntwood, no irrigation on
Huntwood side.
Huntwood. And,
So-
and I should say that you had asked me to contact Brandon Hunt. I have a call into him. I haven't had a chance to connect with him yet, but, again, so we'll have those conversations, but at this point, I don't have anything to report on. But I do think that, there may be an opportunity in looking at this, getting a solution in place through Safe Routes to Schools. It just might be a couple of years to do that.
All right, any other questions for Lisa?
One more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
About safe routes to schools. Do we have to wait to do that project until we get the grant? Or can we do the project and then submit the project for the grant?
No, we would have to, we couldn't expend anything prior to. My suggestion would be, and by the way, you do score better when you have what they call shovel-ready projects.
Yeah.
So my recommendation would be that you do the design. You can get reimbursed for the design, but again, if you have the design already and you have good costs and you're ready to rock and roll, you usually score better on those.
Great. Well, there's no other questions from council. I've got a question for the council. I know in the past, we have painstakingly gone through this capital facilities plan line by line and addressed whether or not something has to move. Do you guys feel the need for that, or are you comfortable with what we've got? Don't all jump at once.
Based on our conversation, I'm comfortable with what we have. Not much has changed from what we had done in the matrices, and I think it's pretty close to what we were talking about. Now, those who've been on the council longer, I think that the staff has been listening for years.
Yeah. Thanks. Councilmember Dunn.
I'd say the prioritization matrix result reports agreement with what has been brought forward by staff. I think that's why there's kind of crickets here right now. Is meeting the expectations of the council.
Super. Just want to make sure we give the opportunity if anybody wants it, but I'm not seeing up. Councilmember Van Orman.
One concern would be, one that was added on, at the very end, was talking about an aquatic center. How do we account for that, knowing that it's not going to be 2023, but we still need to put funds aside for that to happen?
Well, so it's on the facility, capital facilities plan as an unfunded project, correct?
What's that?
Community pool.
Swimming pool.
The swimming pool, yes, you added that last time. It is on the funded projects list. Excuse me, throwing things around.
Yeah, and again, for the audience, information, so we put things on the capital facilities plan as unfunded projects in case we do have an opportunity where a grant becomes available. So if we have a swimming pool on there and unfunded, if a grant comes available or somebody wants to donate, for a pool, it's on the list, even though there's no money in there for it. If it's not on the list, then we are not eligible. So that's why we have a list of unfunded things. It's kind of a wish list. All right, I guess moving on then, we will be moving on to 9C, our ordinance 119B, establishing the library. So I'm not quite sure where we want to start with this. So we did send out to the council last week the 119 and then the revised 119A. Really, the only significant difference between the two was, I believe it was section 3. I didn't bring my marked up version with me, which went into more explanation and better definition of how the library is funded. So what happened, with the original funding mechanism was 50 cents out of the property tax. And as the city grew, the library was only getting the same amount of money and not additional money to handle the growth. So we took that as a function of percentage of property tax back then. And so you'll see in new section 3 where that is much better spelled out how the library gets the operational funding. There are a couple other just cleanup items. So the topic, as I understand it tonight, is reviewing the ordinance, whether or not the council wants oversight, just oversight into the policies and final approval. But I will note that it is, since day one, that's not how it's been. The library board of trustees sets the policy. There's no final approval by the council. That's been how it's been since day one. With regards to the book challenge piece of it, I will say, we've had one. I know we had 3 council members asked to put this on the agenda, which is why it's on there right now. But given all of the other things that have to happen between now and the end of the year, I would have hoped that we could push this to next year, where we could give it more time and thought. I mean, we're 8:30 now, and we still have a bunch of council business to go through. But it is on the agenda, so we can start there. I'm not quite sure who wants to drive the discussion. I think I'd seen Councilmember Dunn's hand up at one point. I didn't know if you wanted to start. So I'll just kind of let him go, and then we can just take the conversation from there.
Sure, Chris. Madam Mayor, I believe there was some pending MRC guidance regarding library operations and policy. Did you mention that is not yet released?
Yeah, correct. And Janie might be able to expand on that a little bit more. She was in a meeting. This is all new information as of yesterday, council. She was in a meeting in the last day or so with some of her peers from Washington State, and jump in, Jandy, if I'm going to get this wrong. And she brought this topic up, and it just so happens that there is a new publication coming from MRSC in the next couple of weeks on this topic. It seems like there's still some ambiguity between different codes. But I would love to wait to see what that professional opinion is from MRSC, and maybe even have the attorney who's helping work on that be a guest at one of the meetings, if necessary.
would you like me to speak?
Absolutely.
So the issue that's in play is the optional municipal code 35A, as well as the library statutes 27, I'm forgetting the rest of it, but those 2 statutory schemes and the interplay between the 2. And so MRSC is intending to put out a posting relative to those 2 and a prior Attorney General opinion and what they see at this point in time relative to those 2 schemes. So that's what Jandy is referring to, in the mayor referring to. I think Jandy, in a week or 2, I think was the thought process that was going to come out. And what their opinion is relative to the operations of the library, municipal code cities, and the operations of and the interplay between the 2 of them.
That is correct. That's what I saw from MRSC as well. The fact of library districts versus municipal
Correct.
libraries. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Mayor, if I may, I'm sorry. And I think the reason for that is there isn't any real case law that interprets the statutes. So they're looking into it to try to give some guidance on those statutes, because there hasn't been any case law to interpret the statutes.
Well, we did find, and again, jump in if I'm saying this wrong. So Spokane Valley does have a separate library district. City of Spokane, though they are a charter city, right? Which is a little bit different. Their library is part of a branch of their government, like it is here. And their policy is, with regards to the book challenges, it stops at the library board of trustees, and the council does not have final approval on the policy. So we're very, very similar, with the exception of the fact that we're a code city in their charter. So we do have at least one very close example of the same situation, with regards to the organizational structure.
Mayor, and if I may, I mean, I think that it should be noted that there's a distinction between policy and what may happen in certain situations and the ordinance itself. The ordinance is not going to tell you what a book challenge looks like. That's all going to be about policy. That's all going to be about what the process is and how that's determined, whether that's through the library board of trustees or whether that comes to the council. So there's a distinction between the two. Nothing in the ordinance is going to tell you, I want to challenge a book. I have a complaint about something at the library. You're not going to go to the ordinance to find where the answer to that is. It's going to be determined by a policy that's put in place, whether by the board of trustees, by the council, or a combination thereof.
Councilmember Cargill.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to zoom out a little bit here because I think we're getting lost in this whole book challenge issue. And to me, as the mayor said, this has happened once. I mean, I don't know how long the mayor has seen all these. Obviously, it's been a long time for both the mayor and the former mayor. Once in 21 years, thank you. So I'm not really concerned or that interested in making this an issue about a book. To me, the issue is about council oversight. And if you read on the ordinance right now, under section G, section G2 says, make recommendations to the city council concerning functions, authority, compensation, and duties of the city librarian. Section G4 obviously talks about submitting annually to the city council a budget containing detailed estimates. When I think about this issue, I think about it from that perspective, and the perspective that every other commission, save the salary commission, for good reason, because we have a conflict of interest there, obviously, if we were to try to approve or challenge something that happened from the salary commission. But every other board or commission or entity of the city eventually can come back to the city council. It doesn't mean that it will come back to the city council. In fact, if this policy were in place, it would have been once every 21 years that it would have come back to the city council. But in terms of what we're able to tell the citizens in terms of their elected officials having a vote in the process, I think it is critically important to have some sort of function or mechanism whereby that can be addressed. We saw the issue come up obviously back in May, and this council chamber was full of people because people were interested in the policy. People were interested in the debate. Not many library board meetings are full, and I understand that. They happen at different times of the day and people are busy. They don't have time to leave work and come to the meeting or zoom into the meeting. And so we are really there, the function of last resort for the citizens in the community. And I think having some sort of mechanism in the ordinance that says that in the event the citizens want to challenge something that this board has done, they can come to the city council is not outrageous. I think it's a simple request, and it puts the onus back on us as the elected body of the city. So those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Solberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Going along with the once in 21 years, I was here during that time, and I think the only aberration in our policy was that the city council was asked to approve the Board of Trustees recommendation, which was not part of the ordinance. That being the case, if we did change to us having some sort of elected oversight, the result of that vote was 5-2 in favor of supporting the Board of Trustees. During that meeting, there were 15 people that spoke. 13 spoke in favor of the Board of Trustees having the final say and opposing any kind of book banning. And in our meeting tonight, we've had overwhelming citizen participation supporting the Board of Trustees being the final authority on these issues. Now, that said, why are we talking about this now? We're talking about the budget, and this was put on, and this was a surprise to me, and I understand that we've had some discussions about it, and I know their feelings. But why are we doing this now? I think if we wanted to do this in some sort of a setting where we have the advice from the MRSC and from our attorney, then if you wanted to take another look at the ordinance, that's completely within our jurisdiction. But I'm not in favor of having the legislative branch of this city, regardless of how you see it with other commissions, legislating what appears to be a moral issue and a censorship issue. So we could put this off for another time. We're talking about this now on November 1st. And we have a lot of other things, including our budget, that are pretty important that I thought we were supposed to be talking about.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Councilmember Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I think whether we're talking about elected officials or appointed individuals, if our best interest, if the best interest of the community is not our number one priority, we don't deserve to be in public service, period. I'll to address Tom's point about why are we talking about this now. I'm concerned about the optics of all of this. During the book challenge in May and in subsequent meetings, this was prior to me being appointed to the council, and subsequent meetings, I heard requests to address this. So to be frank, the last regular meeting that we had on October 18th caught me by surprise, because it was labeled as a workshop, but the appearance and the optics again were a council report. That it was not a workshop. So that's what caught me.
It was under presentations.
Okay, so I'll just tell you what I did at that point. So I was caught off guard. I was not expecting this whole issue to bubble up and to see that the collection development policy had already been put in place at that point. So I went back and looked at the last couple of library board meetings from 9/21 and 10/12. A question came up about the city council workshop. It was called a workshop on the 8th at that time during that meeting. Jandy asked to clarify if it should be a report or a workshop. And the chairperson Hamlet had said the mayor was firm that it should be a workshop. So then when I went and listened to the more recent meeting, all the talk was about a report. Multiple references to it being a report. Jandy brought up the question to Mark, is there going to be an opportunity for council to ask questions about this? And later in the meeting, the chairperson said, yes, this is a policy that is going to warrant some discussion from the council, I'm sure. So that's where I'm confused. My hope was that we could have a conversation. Again, we're all citizens of Liberty Lake. We all have the best interest of our community at hand. Again, going back to the optics, if we look at how this was framed, first of all, the agenda item for this evening was not listed. There was no when we look at the agenda, typically there's a cover page that kind of tells us what we're talking about. That wasn't in existence on this document. So my question is, why were citizens coming to talk about book challenges and council versus board member authority? Where did they get that information? That there's nothing to be had in the report we were given here, the agenda. So my question is, why did it happen this way? So my concern is, again, this was an issue. I've already mentioned previously that I don't want to be involved in book challenges, and I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I'm pretty sure none of us want to be involved in book challenges. So I'm not even sure why that argument's being made. Ultimately, the elected officials are accountable to the citizens. This was a hot button issue. I believe that the library board knew that that was an issue that was going to be a hot topic, and it already had been. And I believe they intentionally avoided the conversation, an open conversation with the council. They went ahead and approved that collection policy in that 9/21 meeting, and then started talking about workshops, and then it devolved into a report, and then we're caught off guard. So I'm not here to say what the ultimate policy was that you guys landed on was incorrect, but I think the optics and the method of how it was gone about was incorrect. In life and in business, there are many opportunities to do what is legal, but it's not ethical. I believe that what took place here was not ethical. And that's no dig to any specific member of the board. I think Jandy does a great job of running the library.
So, wait, no, you guys.
Hang on,
excuse me, you're out-
please.
I apologize, you guys are out of order. We'll take citizen comments at the end.
Okay, as I was saying, I think Jandy does a great job running the library. I love the program she puts on. I've had several conversations with her at different events. But again, the optics of all of this are not good. And we're the ones that have to be accountable to the citizens.
Okay, if I, oh shoot. Go ahead. And so the policy is not in the workshop for tonight because the topic for the workshop was the ordinance. So the ordinance is in there.
Right, so ultimately, I would support a motion to change the ordinance to allow the city council to have a little bit more oversight and the ability to have that discussion because we were removed from that opportunity.
Okay, well, guess we've got a motion on the floor. Can you restate? Oh, what?
Okay, let me.
I'm not
hold on
making
for
a
a second.
motion, I'm
so
saying I would support the motion.
Okay.
I think that certainly, and I've had this conversation with Jandy and I think the Board of Trustees know this as well. It is within the prerogative of the council to make a change to the ordinance. They have the right to do that. Having said that, if that is the course of action that the council wants to take, we need to be more specific about what's going to go into the ordinance and not just say, we want oversight. Because I don't know what that means. I don't know what language goes in the ordinance, and it's not going to create any practical impact on what the library board and what the librarian Jandy is supposed to do. So keep that in mind when you're having this discussion as to what you want to do and what that's going to look like, because just saying oversight doesn't mean anything relative to putting it in the ordinance. And that's what I meant by policies that are being established by the Board of Trustees and the ordinance itself. There are many different policies within the library, not just, we're talking about the book challenge issue. That's just one policy that's in place. So there's many others that are in place too. So keep that in mind because I have no idea what that will look like if you're asking me to change the ordinance and bring it back to the council for consideration.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. Councilmember Kurtz and then Councilmember Van Orman.
I feel like tonight's discussion is pretty reactionary, and I don't know that it is going to help talking about all this tonight, but we are here. That's what we're doing. I wouldn't have supported this being on the agenda tonight. I think this is more of a topic for the next year. There's clearly a strong response from our community, our commissioners who have put in the work and did the work with our librarian and within industry standards to come up with the policies and procedures that we, through ordinance, have given them the power to do. I think There are a lot of assumptions about what they did or why they did it. That are, it's kind of an unfair situation here because they can't respond to it. And so it feels really awkward, I think, to be talking about this tonight. We have people who are volunteers at the city that we confirmed. This body, it may not have been these bodies in these chairs, but we confirmed these people to do a job. They are citizens. They do have, I believe, this is my assumption, the best interests of the city at heart, in line with the laws that they can follow as guided by our city attorney. I feel, again, another assumption on my part, is people feel like something was taken away from them. Some power here was taken away from the people of this body. And it is really frustrating to hear that and to watch it and to see the impact that it's having on the people in our community that are here to serve as well. We are all equal in our commitment to serving our community. I don't want to ban books. I don't want to talk about books. I don't want to be the person that decides that. I trust the people that have come up with the policies, again, in line with industry standards and the law, to do that for us. That is the power that we have granted to them. I think one of the fundamental questions is whether we trust them or not. I don't know that we need to have oversight. Last week, the Planning Commission talked about making changes to different code. Nobody said a word. Nobody even batted an eye about removing carports and garages and things. Nobody batted an eye. But again, this was such a hot topic earlier this year that people are like on edge. I am on edge about it. Listening to the conversation that has gone on tonight. What I heard from one of our citizens tonight was let the board do their job. And I would like to support that. I would like to do that. Don't take library policy decisions away from the board. I don't want to do that. And I don't know, my opinion is that I don't think that this body needs to regulate that body. I understand what people are saying about the elected officials and it all ends with us and everything too, but I guess I disagree on that point. I think that considering this policy and diving into this and adding one line that, again, to Mr. Boutz's point, is not qualified yet. While we're still waiting for some policy, we're having a really premature reactionary discussion tonight. I understand that 3 people asked to have it on. So I feel like there are a couple different ways to get through tonight. One of them is to have that discussion. Somebody can make a motion. I think which has been talked about, making the motion. And I would like to make a motion that we table this until January. That is my motion.
Okay, we have a motion to table this till January with a second by Councilmember Sahlberg. Any discussion?
Discussion.
Councilmember Van Orman.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked to have this brought back up. There have been 3 ordinances. One when we established the library to begin with, one more in 2012, and then the most recent. Wanted to see the differences between what transpired before, and frankly, the library has always brought the city council into it. So when the situation arose and you had that as city council, I just wondered in the ordinance where that was and if it was addressed.
Excuse me, Councilmember, the topic right now is the motion to table. So if you can hold those comments until after, if you have a comment on the motion, that'd be great. Councilmember Cargill.
To answer Councilmember Sahlberg's statement, the whole reason this is coming up now is because of what happened at the last meeting. And yes, I understand that it has not been part of the ordinance, but it was in the previous policy of the library. That's why we're having this conversation, was because that policy was taken out of the policy.
Oh, you're not talking about the ordinance, you're talking about the
Correct,
policy.
Correct. And so that's why we're having this conversation. And so, you know, again, to me, this is not necessarily about a book issue or anything else. This is about whether the council is going to have oversight. And I think the entire conversation and the reason why we're here tonight, and some are a little bit upset about this, is because the council was told this was gonna happen. The council was not discussed with that this was gonna happen. So that is a very, very big difference. And I think that is why it has rubbed some people the wrong way. I went back and also watched the videos as well, and I had some of the same concerns that Councilmember Spencer had.
Okay, and
So I,
Councilmember Cargill, if you can keep your
Yes,
comments to
I
the
will.
motion.
So I think this is a timely topic that we still need to have a discussion on. I don't favor just delaying it to January, because then that just pushes it off more and more and more. So I would just speak against that motion, and let's bring back the conversation about whether we want to, in the future, have a conversation about putting elected officials or the council in charge, or at least having some oversight. And to Sean's point, I think it can be a simple item that can be added to section G as a section G6 that simply says that the city council can review and reconsider any of the policies that are appealed from the citizens. I mean, it's simple as that. And again, if that happens once every 20 years, then so be it.
Any other comments on the motion to move this to January? Please
Yes.
keep comments to the topic.
Yeah, Mayor, my
Mayor Pro
comment
Tem.
is this, you haven't heard from two of the council members yet,
Yep.
and there's a motion on the floor and you're trying to stop discussion. So I'd appreciate it if the last two of us could have a word about the topic. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Thank you. I think you were,
In the middle of the discussion and get caught up. Yeah,
Well, it's
Yeah,
my job
let's-
to keep the meeting moving on topic, and the topic is the motion. But point well taken. Go ahead.
The topic basically goes back to this. We have MRSC looking at a couple of weeks. I think we should postpone until we hear back from MRSC. Whether it's January or whether we go ahead and bring this up after it comes out. I would agree with that. Being cut off, I don't agree with.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I guess for me, I have similar thoughts and feelings about how this all shook out. I was caught a little off guard. Neither here nor there. I had been asking several times throughout the year since May, where's the policy update? How's everybody, how's that coming along? Because I guess in my mind, and I was expecting maybe the same dialogue that we have with the other parts of this body. And so that's why when I asked, where's your red line version? I'd like to see it. Not that I want to do their job, or not that I don't think they can do their job, and I trust them all to do their job. But I was just, I think the ordinance is rather vague, and there's some gray area in it. And I too listened to the conversation from the Board of Trustees from the beginning of the year. That was fun. And what I've taken from that in our discussions and how I want to professionally approach this is, I guess I've been expecting we would sit down together as a group and talk about, one, what happened, why was the policy the way it was, or how can we fix it, and get everybody involved in the conversation. That's kind of what I was expecting was going to happen over the course of the last 6 months. So yeah, at the last meeting, I was a little caught off guard because I was like, here it is. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not how we've done business with other parts of how we operate. So I've read through our ordinance and it's been brought up several times. Nowhere in there does it say specifically who has the final say on the policy. It says under their duties and whatever, that the Board of Trustees adopt bylaws, rules, and regulations for the guidance of the Board of Trustees. Perfect. But what it doesn't say is without approval of the council or on their own or whatever. It's missing a piece in my mind. And I want them to do their job. I don't want to get in their way. So I think our ordinance is a little flawed because it doesn't really spell that out. And I think depending on how you feel about the subject or the book reconsideration and what all took down or went down. It's easy to take a piece of this and argue that here's the RCW for the library trustees from the state. It's easy to take parts and pieces of that, but not all of it applies to our scenario with this group and the city and how we operate. Not, there's 10 items, 3 or 4 apply, not all of them apply. So yeah, you can use some of that or not all of it. And then you go to, you brought up the city of Spokane. They have their own municipal library. And right here is their ordinance that says Spokane Public Library, although an agency of the city of Spokane, is a separate statutory entity under chapter 2712, which is right here, this from the RCWs. So when I read that, I was like, maybe that's all we're missing. Maybe it's not so difficult. But I having listened to the conversations from the Board of Trustees, having listened to ourselves, having listened to myself, and the amount of time I spent digging into this, I really feel like there's some tension between these two bodies that I would like to squash, first of all. And I would encourage, I have no problems with talking about this in January after our budget discussions, but I would like to see us all sit down and have a meaningful discussion about what parts are we missing that fit us? Because as I read through the RCW, it talks a lot about county libraries and island library. I don't want to bore you with all that. However, nothing in there talked about a municipal library. Nothing. Talks about board of trustees and so on and so on, but it's very little about municipal libraries. So then when I read Spokane's, I was like, we just gotta say what we want in our ordinance, and that's it. So that's where I'm coming from. I would just like to see us address the policy decision process of the ordinance, but I want to do it as a group.
Thank you. Councilmember Dunn, go to you, and then we'll take a vote on the motion to move this to January.
I believe that the Library Board of Trustees acted per the ordinance and developed the policies as provided guidance to them. I support the ordinance in its current form and the autonomy of the board to be able to perform that action. I speak in favor of the motion to table this, especially pending guidance from MRC regarding how municipals are to act in these circumstances. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So those in favor of moving the further discussion on this topic to January, please say aye or hold your hand up as well so I can get you. I've got 1, 2, 3. That looks like let me write this down because we don't have our vote cast. So I'm a little lost without it. All right. And those in favor of
Opposed.
again, those opposed, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we will not be moving till January. Vote is 3 in favor, 4 against. So I guess the next question follows is what are our next steps? Again, keeping in mind, we have the budget to go through over the next couple weeks, trying not to have an additional special meeting to go over the budget, giving people their alternate Tuesdays off if possible. December 15th is usually more of a light meeting with awards and such. So I'd like to hear, what the next steps might be. Sean, do you have an opinion on how to tackle this?
I do not.
I have a question for the council, since we're past the motion. Is there any does anybody want to entertain my idea of getting together with the board of trustees?
Sure. I see head nods all around.
Okay, I'll make a motion then. Does anybody is January okay? I'll make a motion to have a meeting to work through the specifics of the ordinance in conjunction with the Library Board of Trustees sometime in the month of January.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to schedule a meeting with the Board of Trustees in January to talk about the ordinance. All right, any discussion? Councilmember Kurtz. All right, any further discussion? Councilmember Cargill?
Can I just have clarification, Councilmember Foyer? So that meeting, we would basically walk through the entire ordinance is what you're saying. Or are we just talking about the issue that we're discussing here tonight? Because as the mayor put in her email, there are parts of the policy that the library changed that are not of concern, I don't think, to any of us. So are we talking specifically about this issue or
Ordinance.
just the ordinance in
It should
general?
be the
Just the
ordinance.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to get into. the
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah.
Councilmember Solberg.
Yes, for clarification, I totally support that if we're going to be looking at clarifying, as the city of Spokane has done, not with regard to council oversight over the board of trustees. If that's the issue we're going to be talking.
I'm not saying any of that's right or wrong
Well-
at this point, but I think it's worth further discussion.
General, overall discussion on the ordinance. All right, all in favor of setting up a meeting with the Board of Trustees in January, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0.
Do we need to ask them if that's okay?
You guys-
Is that okay?
Well, and we will have citizen comments at the end. Appreciate your patience. Just know that as much as we would like to take interaction during the middle of the meeting, that's not how it works. But we look forward to hearing further comments. All right. On to more council business, consent agenda.
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem.
Can we take a
yes.
short break?
Potty break, 5 minutes, stand at ease.
Thank you.
That's. No. Okay, all right, welcome back. Thanks for the suggestion for the break, Councilmember Cargill, well needed. All right, general business, Mayor Pro Tem, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 10A, B, and C. I'm not going to read them all. You have them in your agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and second by Councilmember Solberg. All in favor, please say aye.
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 There we go. Motion consent agenda is approved, 7-0.
General business item 11A, make a motion to approve the donation of soccer nets for Rocky Hill Park and authorize the mayor to accept the donation.
Second.
Thank you. The motion and a second by Councilmember Cargill. Any questions? All right, all in favor of approving the donation of soccer nets, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0.
General business item 11B, make a motion to confirm the appointment of John Bear to position 2 to serve on the Parks and Arts Commission. I said his last name correctly.
Second.
Okay, wow, good. And a second from Councilmember Solberg. Any questions? I don't know if he is on. I don't see him, but for those of you who don't know, John is the gentleman who does the garden there at the library. All right, any questions? All right, all in favor of confirming the appointment of John Bear to Parks and Arts Commission, please say aye.
Aye. Right.
All right, any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0.
General business item 11C, I make a motion to confirm the mayor's appointment of Paul Brown as a voting member of the planning commission with a term expiring on December 31st, 2025.
Second.
We have a second from Councilmember Kurtz. Any questions, discussion? Mr. Brown did serve on the planning commission earlier, so I'm glad to have him back. All in favor of confirming Paul Brown to the planning commission, please say aye.
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 All right, any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0.
General business item 11D, make a motion to declare the Ford Interceptor sedan as surplus and approve donation to Central Valley School District.
Second.
We have a second from Councilmember Solberg. All right, any questions on this? Councilmember Van Orman.
I do. It's to the chief, Chief Simmons. Do we have currently this on the surplus? Have we had it on the surplus prior to this coming to council?
Chief.
Well, I can answer that. So the answer is no. This is just identified through a collaboration between Central Valley School District and RPD. And so the motion A would be to declare it surplus tonight and then move forward.
Okay. The concern that I have, while it sounds wonderful and I would love to be able to do that, concern is if we're thinking about 3 new police officers that we haven't passed yet in this budget, they're also going to need to have police vehicles. And if we're surplusing them off before they're ready to be surplus. I'm just wondering if that's in the city's best interest.
So Kyle, do you have the detail on the mileage and the age and all of that? And the reason it's not in rotation?
So I can kind of relay the rationale, I suppose, behind the decision from the PD. Don't want to speak for them, but I can just speak on the interactions that we had. And so the determination was, they believe the average condition with mileage would be about $7,100, would be a fair market value for this car. The cost to decommission the vehicle is about $1,500 or more to get all the equipment out through Raycom. There's also been a history of these cars needing water pumps when they reach that 100,000 mile mark. That ends up costing in the neighborhood of $5,000 to get those replaced. And the ultimate determination was, if we were to keep it with the city, we could end up spending an additional $6,000 to keep it in the city fleet.
Do we know currently what it has as far as how much is on the odometer?
Chief, do you know what our mileage is on that?
Hold on, Lieutenant's here to answer the question.
Sorry, thank you.
Wouldn't mind. It's got over 103,000 miles on it right now is where we're sitting
That's
currently.
really easy.
Yeah,
Thank
it's a piece of cake. And on top of that, just the main reason we want to do this vehicle specifically is because the mileage, it's not being used currently. We have enough vehicles on site in order to facilitate our new officers coming on board. And it would be and benefit Chief Asma's quite substantially in the fact that he needs a vehicle and it's already outfitted in order to work as a patrol vehicle for the Central Valley School District.
Did you say piece of cake or piece of?
It would be easy. Let's
Okay.
just say that. How's that? Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Lieutenant. All right, any other questions? Councilmember Kurtz?
Maybe this is for Lieutenant. One of the things I think we heard Chief say during the budget discussion was that they were having a little bit of trouble getting some of the vehicles that you guys need for your officers actually outfitted.
It is correct.
Is the outfit that's in there now, would that be something that could be used for officers today?
We've taken everything that we need out of that
Okay.
vehicle in order to outfit our current vehicles that we're
Okay.
trying to outfit. So we should have everything we need in order to outfit them
Okay.
now. So everything should be taken care of.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So you've stripped it for parts.
Stripped it and everything we need. We're leaving the rest of you eat nap.
Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Chime in real quick, but what is left, the way I understand the summary is what is left in the vehicle is beneficial to the school district.
That is correct.
Thank you.
AC maybe.
All right.
All right. Those in favor of declaring the Ford Interceptor sedan as surplus and approve the donation to CVSD, please say aye.
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 All right, any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. We are on to council comments, not to include future agenda items, which comes later. Anybody have anything to add? Going once, going twice, going three times. All right, public hearings and appeals. 2023 proposed budget. Kyle, is there anything you want to do to introduce this?
So before we open it up for any comment, I did want to follow up on a few items that came up during the last round of discussions or during the public hearing. So I passed out a flyer to council indicating what our top property tax donators are. Councilmember Dunn, I'll get that to you as well. There was a question that was posed at the last meeting. And so I provided that information. Also, there was discussion about what types of industry are our biggest contributors to sales tax. And so without going into too much detail and keeping it high level, there are industry classification codes. They're called NAICS codes that determine what industry is generating what type of sales tax. And I pulled a couple different months from different types of years. This isn't a comprehensive 2022 breakdown, but generally you can expect about 60% of sales tax coming through retail trade, about 15% through construction. I noticed 8% through food service, and then the remaining you have kind of spread over wholesale, manufacturing, finance, insurance, education, arts, and recreation. So that's kind of your breakdown of industry that you're seeing your sales tax coming from. And then one of the last pieces was how often we go for banking services. And so we signed a contract with Banner back in November 2018. That contract expires with the option for an additional year next November, so November 2023. And then we have so November 2023, we have the option to sign an additional year. And then we can discuss putting out an additional RFP for banking services, either at that time or at the what would be the final expiration of 6 years.
Go ahead, Councilmember Cargill.
So Kyle, just to clarify, so that would start to happen the next November, or would we start having that conversation sooner?
We would have that conversation probably in the summer or late spring.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any questions for Kyle? Kyle, you have anything more before we open it up for public hearing?
I do not know.
All right, so we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for the 2023 proposed budget at 9:17 PM on November 1st. Do we have anybody here in the chambers or online who would like to make a public comment with regards to the 2023 proposed budget? If there's somebody online who would like to comment, please send a note to Trevor Reagan in the chat and he will get my attention and we will take your comment. I'm trying to fill some time so we can flip over to 9:18. Is anybody online? Is it? Does Verizon say so? All right. Oh, there it goes. Just flipped over. All right, we will close the public hearing at 9:18 PM. All right, next public hearing, we've got the 2023 to 2028 capital facilities plan. Lisa, I don't know if you have anything you want to add at all. Okay. So again, we will take comments on the capital facilities plan. We will open the public hearing at 9:18 on November 11th. So if there's anybody in chambers or on Zoom who'd like to make a comment on the 2023-2028 capital facilities plan, please either get my attention here in chambers or Trevor's on the chat. All right, not hearing any. We'll go ahead and close the hearing at 9:19-ish. All right, resolutions. Kelsey, you're up.
So first we have resolution number 01-027A, a resolution of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, amending resolution number 01-027 entitled Designating and Approving Participation in the ICMA Retirement System.
Okay, do we have any questions for probably Kyle on this one? It's just a name change.
Correct.
All right, not seeing, do we have a motion to approve
So moved.
or motion to, approve? We have motion by second, Councilmember Van Orman. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Not seeing any. All in favor of approving resolution 01-027A, please say aye.
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 All right. All right, and any opposed? All right, not seeing any. Motion passes 7-0.
Next is resolution number 22-237, a resolution of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, approving the final plat of River Crossing 2020 First Edition, located in a portion of the southwest and southeast quarters of the southwest quarter of Section 9, Township 25N, Range 45 EWM, Liberty Lake, Washington.
Okay.
Approve resolution number 22-237.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Van Orman. All right, any discussion? I did forget on the first resolution. I apologize. We will take public comment on resolution 22-237. Not seeing anybody jump up to the podium in chambers. Anybody online want to make a comment on this resolution? Okay, not hearing any. Okay, those in favor of approving resolution 22-237, please say aye.
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 All right, any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0.
Next is resolution number 22-238, a resolution of the city of Liberty Lake, Washington, approving the final plat of River Crossing East Third Edition, located in portions of the southwest, northeast, and southeast quarters of the southwest quarter of Section 9, Township 25N, Range 45, EWM, Liberty Lake, Washington.
Right. We have any,
To approve resolution number 22-238.
okay, we have motion by Councilmember Solberg. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Spencer. All right, do we have any public comment on resolution 22-238? Okay, not seeing any. All in favor of approving resolution 22-238, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0.
Last for resolutions, we have resolution number 22-239, a resolution identifying special market conditions for purchase of used equipment and waiving the public bidding requirements pursuant to RCW 3204-280.
Do we want, let's get just a little clarification on this one for the council, because I know I was confused at first. Kyle, Jen, Trevor, I don't know which one of you wants to kind of touch on why we're doing this.
So I can start off and then Kyle can help me. We are proposing to purchase a used piece of equipment versus brand new. And purchasing a used piece requires a different procurement process, requiring a resolution versus a new piece of equipment with either competitive bids or purchasing from a national or state contract. So because we're purchasing this used piece of equipment, we have to go through the resolution process per MRSC's guidance. And I guess, Kyle, am I missing anything? Maybe you can.
So what we're identifying with this purchase is what's called a special market condition, where you can't just go out and get 3 like bids for this piece of equipment that the city staff has deemed advantageous and on favorable terms to acquire. So what you have is an opportunity without the proper mechanism to acquire it through competitive bidding process.
Gotcha. Councilmember Cargill?
Thanks very much. I appreciate being able to do this and save a little bit of cash. I guess my question is, how long do one of these pieces of equipment last? I mean, is this gonna last us for 5 or 10 years, or are we gonna have to go and do this again in 3, 4, 5 years?
So I will say on that side of it, when you purchase used equipment, you don't always know the history. You don't always know the future. We do know the vendor who we're contracting or we're purchasing it from, and he takes very good care of his equipment. He used to be our snow contractor for the city. The crews have also been renting this piece on occasion to do swale cleanouts and use it as a vac. So they have experience with this particular piece of equipment and they know the condition it's in, which is sort of a fortunate option versus purchasing it from a rental company or purchasing it from a dealer. They've actually been renting this particular piece of equipment and know the history, know that it's in good condition, know that the contractor has been caring for this piece. So it comes recommended with that. We don't always have that opportunity to know that about a used piece of equipment, but we do know that about this piece.
And what would a new one cost?
Oh, that's a great question. Not $39,000. I can't answer that. I'm sorry, I don't have that information. Not $39,000. I can get back to you if you would like to know the original purchase price. I'm thinking probably double, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions, comments?
It
All right.
already has a name on it.
Right. We don't have to name that one. All right. Do we have a motion to approve resolution 22-239?
Move the resolution as stated.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Dunn and a second by Mayor Pro Tem. All right, all in public, is there any public comment on resolution 22-239? Seeing anything, Trevor? Okay, those in favor of approving resolution 22-239, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. Okay, we are on to ordinances for first read.
This is ordinance number 289, an ordinance of the city of Liberty Lake, Washington, levying the regular property taxes for the city of Liberty Lake, Washington in Spokane County for the year commencing January 1, 2023, to provide revenue for the provision of city services as set forth in the city budget.
All right, first read, but I will, if there's any questions or comments, we'll take them and then they'll come back for second read at the next meeting. Not hearing any? Okay, we'll go on and move on to 15B, second read ordinance.
Ordinance number 288, an ordinance of the city of Liberty Lake, Washington, granting the right of franchise to Avista Corporation, DBA Avista Utilities, a Washington corporation for the operation of natural gas distribution system in the city of Liberty Lake.
Do we have any comments or questions? I just came before you at first read at the last meeting. All right, do we have any public comment or on ordinance 288, the franchise agreement for Vista Natural Gas? Yeah. All right, I don't see any comments. All right, do we have a motion to approve ordinance 288?
So moved.
All right, we have a first by Councilmember Spencer. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Van Orman. All right, any further discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor of approving ordinance 288, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Any opposed? All right, not hearing any. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving right along. Emergency ordinances, we do not have any. Introduction of upcoming agenda items. Our list is getting a little bit shorter. So everything at the beginning is our November 1st, which is today. November 15th, we have the annual comp plan and code amendments, comprehensive plan and code amendments at 6 o'clock. Is there anything? We said we may have a couple of our other items ready in time for the 15th. Those will be TBD. So we've got camping ordinance. We're continuing budget and capital facilities plan. Would you guys like to add, I guess it would make my suggestion to add some time for follow-up budget discussion, sorry, on the 15th. Or I guess I'm getting my head of myself a little bit. So next week is the 8th. It would be great to be able to have an additional meeting, recognizing that it is election night and there are some things going on later in that evening that some people probably are planning to go to. How would you guys feel about doing a budget discussion from 6 to 8 on the 8th? Nope. Okay. No, all right. So
I personally have a work conflict on the
Okay.
evening of the 8th.
thanks, Councilmember Dunn. So I'll tell you what, Kyle and Mark and I will look at the agendas because I know Kyle, remind me, we were trying to do the first read budget ordinance at the second meeting in November, right?
That is correct. And what I can propose is what I've heard so far as action items I would preemptively include in the final budget for presentation. And we can vote on those. And then any changes that we see on November 15th can be recognized in time for the second read for the first meeting in December.
Okay. So I guess, so let me ask the council this, since we'll have a couple weeks between now and the next meeting. There's still things we haven't gotten through to the budget. If you could,
There's 7 items.
well, there's stuff at the beginning. I think we want to go through as well, because I know Councilmember Cargo had requested one modification. I don't see any problem with it, but if there is anything you guys have questions on between now and then, if you could send them to Kyle and Mark and I, that way we can get ahead of it, and then we'll get that question and answer back out to everybody. So we're all on the same page. That might help us get through the 15th a little bit easier. And then Kyle will summarize, we'll put together that list of items that we are either still need answers on or requested changes, get that out to everybody ahead of time as well. So you know what's going to be out there to discuss and vote on it on the 15th. Does that work?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Pro
Are
Tem.
we required to do the annual comp plan code amendment on the 15th?
I think so. Yes.
Can we move that out at all or? And do our finalize our budget.
We have to complete the process by the end of the year. And we've got the first read ordinance on the first meeting in December, the second read ordinance on the second meeting. Wanted to be able to workshop these. I think we've got 5 different items that you probably want to have a little bit of background on.
Thank you.
Okay, okay. All right, so we will follow up on that information. All right, so we will go to citizen comments. So I do have one additional one from here. It's like 2 from here or several from here in Chambers. Excuse me. And again, if there's anybody on online who'd like to make a comment as well, please send a note to Trevor in the chat. All right, Brad Hamlet, thank you for sticking around.
Brad Hamlet, citizen, resident at, on Settler Drive, also member of the Board of Trustees. I never thought I'd have to stand up here and say this to the council, but I'm thoroughly disappointed in what took place tonight. I am offended by what took place tonight. Our board spent months reviewing this policy, reviewing state policy, reviewing state RCWs, reviewing many cities' policies about how they go about their book collection and challenges to their book collection. It took us months to come to that decision. To say that you were surprised is a surprise to me. Our agendas are posted just as your agendas are posted. You have a duty to check those agendas, and you have a duty to come to those meetings if you have a question or if you feel like you need to weigh in on those meetings. And to say that you were surprised, in my opinion, is a dereliction of your duty as a council member. And then to say that we were difficult for me to say unethical is totally irresponsible, in my opinion. It is not becoming of your position to call people who have been appointed by this body and trusted by these citizens to make good decisions regarding their library. That to me is unacceptable. For you to say that your intent for oversight over this policy and to say that it's not about the book controversy, I don't believe is being truthful to yourself for some of you, because that's exactly what it is about. The policy is a good policy. It follows state guidelines. It follows other cities like ourselves. It follows other cities that are not like ourselves. But the policy is consistent throughout this state and with other libraries throughout the country. We follow the ALA, the freedom of speech, all the libraries guidelines that are at the national level, the state level, we have followed and we have put to guidance in this policy. It needed to be reviewed. I'm out of time. I have a lot more to say, but I'm thoroughly disappointed.
Thank you. All right, next we have Brian Asmus.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. On behalf of Central Valley School District, I just want to thank you for the generous donation of the vehicle, surplus vehicle. And I was just hoping, and I really appreciate it. but I was just hoping I can negotiate maybe a 6-month, 10,000-mile warranty.
The answer is no.
Okay. all right. But again, I appreciate the partnership and thank you for that consideration.
Are you gonna paint it bright blue?
I will not.
Have that warranty on that Ford you drive around?
All right, next up, we have Abby Schuster.
Thank you. I just wanted to reply to some of the comments that were made tonight. There was the implication that the library board somehow recruited or asked for public support. I find that offensive. I consider myself a concerned citizen who saw the agenda item and did some research. I was not asked to come here and support the library board by anyone. I simply came out of concern. Along those same lines, I would appreciate and hope that any meeting that happens between the library board and the city council be open to the public and public comment. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. All right, Shauna, Dean.
I'm going to reiterate what Brad just said. I was offended, personally offended to be called unethical. It was uncalled for, and it was unbecoming of a city council member. There's also issues, as Brad mentioned, if you think this is not about the book ban, you're not thinking enough about this issue. This has not been an issue until the book ban request came up. Chris Cargill here wrote in April an article about in the Spokesman Review about banning gas-powered vehicles. In it, he stated, simply banning something showcases a lack of true leadership. The people in here that just simply voted to ban a book, according to Chris, show lack of true leadership. He also posted on social media that things like this should only be trusted to elected officials. There are people on this council that are not elected. They've been appointed. I haven't heard you call for them to abstain from voting for anything. I'm kind of surprised at that, given your stance on this. This wasn't personal before. It was about the policy, and it was about the ordinance, and it was about what was best for the community. Freedom of information is what is best for all communities. People that vote to ban books have never been on the right side of history. Never. And again, if you think that this is not about banning books, you're naive.
Thank you. Okay, and I know we have Tim Olson on Zoom, would like to make a comment. So if you could help make that so, Trevor, I appreciate it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Mayor Kaminskas, I was nominated by as a member of the Board of Trustees by the Municipal Library, not by you, but by Mayor C. Peterson, and approved by that city council. I hope make a difference in the city of Liberty Lake with this amazing committee. I signed on to do what I thought was best for the citizens of Liberty Lake and listen to the citizens in every decision we made. I don't have a biased approach in my body. I don't have an agenda unlike some of your city council. I'm here to represent the city's citizens, and that's it. We have repeatedly had to remind the city council about what the citizens have asked for in the assessment that the city council approved and paid for, have only struggled to move forward with these ideas. Tonight, after having members of your city council question the ethics of this committee is totally unfounded and more of a personal agenda for several members of your city council, I will not allow your city council members to question my ethics. I will not serve our library with this council as a member of Liberty Lake Municipal Library Board of Trustees any longer. This council cannot look at the other 17 ordinances that this Board of Trustees has passed and question their ethics on some and not on others. This is clearly a joke. Mayor and council, I love this city. This will never change. I just hope the citizens of Liberty Lake hear the leadership of this city tonight. I wish that the Liberty Lake Municipal Library Board of Trustees all the best, as I know it's full of outstanding individuals who've had the best interests of the citizens of Liberty Lake, regardless of the city council. Please accept my resignation as a member of the Board of Trustees of the Municipal Library of Liberty Lake. Thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of the city in my limited capacity for a short period of time. Sincerely yours, Tim Olson. You'll have this email tonight, Mayor.
Sorry to hear that. Okay, do we have anybody else on Zoom who would like to make a citizen comment? All right, not hearing any. We have 2 executive sessions coming up, so we're estimating probably what, a total half hour?
Yeah, so I think we'll probably need at least a half an hour. So I would ask the council to be able to extend the meeting till at least 10:15. So we have the additional time after 10 o'clock.
Okay, so do we have a motion to extend the meeting to 10:15?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second by Councilmember Van Orman. All in favor of extending the meeting to 10:15, please say aye. All right, any opposed? All right, so first of all, meeting is extended to 10:15. We will, those who are going to be joining us in executive session, who are on Zoom, so Councilmember Dunn, you'll be invited to a breakout room. Todd Hume, you will too, and I think that's, and Chief Simmons, you will be too. I don't know if Lieutenant's gonna be in. You want to stay for that part? Okay. So I'm gonna take my computer in with me to manage seeing you guys on the breakout session. So we will, hold on, Trevor. Dan, should it be, will it be you or your clone?
The one with the camera is great.
I don't know if he can tell. He can't tell.
I'll disconnect from the desktop.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think we can stay in here since the public has gone. All right, so those of you who are doing the breakout sessions, go ahead and click join. As soon as we have everybody back in, we will start our executive sessions. Oh, yeah, sorry. So RCW 42.30.110 regarding potential litigation and RCW 42.30.110 IG for personnel matters. Then there will be no decisions made. We will come out of the executive session and adjourn.
Start at 9:43, Kelsey,
Thank you.
till 10:15.
All right. So we have Councilmember Dunn and Todd on our screen.
We'll have the chief go first.
Yeah, is the chief on yet?
Mayor,
Yes.
clarification, we didn't get a breakout.
No, because you're here. This is for the people on
So
Zoom.
y'all need to close out probably, so people don't hear you.
So, oh, no, I'm just asking about.
They should,
It should just be Dan and Todd and she.
Yeah, I've still got public on the call.
can they hear? All right, we are back from executive session, right on time for a change. Thanks for everybody's patience. No decisions made, and we have no further action. So if there's no objection from council. Okay, I thought it already said that before. Oh, okay. Anyway, so if there's no objections, we will go ahead and adjourn. Any objections? Nope. All right, we are out of here. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for dialing in, Dan.
Yeah, Trevor, read that.